What's going on, folks? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Hey, Wednesday night means it is guides night, and we got some guides coming in here. We're going to break down what's going on Lake Fork, how to catch them. We're going to tell you some secrets, some tips, some tricks, do all that stuff we always love to do around here. It's all about loving our fellow man and helping each other catch more and bigger fish. We're going to get into some of that tonight for sure for the majority of this live stream. Hey, we're also going to have some kind of breaking news on a way to help you with fishing that is so good that it might be considered cheating. I think it is considered cheating in some instances. I don't consider it cheating. We'll talk about it tonight. You can be the judge on whether it's cheating or not. But we're going to break down the easiest way to help you guys catch those more and bigger fish. In the meantime, let's get it started the way we like to with a little bit of good tunes. And if you know this one, we can definitely be friends. Check out Jason Allen and one of my favorite songs, Going Fishing.
This is for all my friends that like to go
Cheers,
fishing.
y'all.
I got an old cane.
Y'all enjoy the music. I'm going to step away. We got other guys getting ready to come in. Y'all stay tuned.
Some arms from earth and a bucket of minnows. It's 5:30 in the morning. I've got to get going. I'm going fishing. Going wishing I might catch something to fry in the frying pan. We're going, y'all. Going fishing. If the man is gonna work, I'm gonna put on work. Hey, if the work don't wiggle, babe, I'm gonna put on another. Hey, I'm gonna stay until they start to bite. Gonna wait them out if it takes all night. I'm going fishing. Going wishing I might catch something to fry in the frying pan. I'm going fishing. Come on.
What y'all think about that song right there, man? That was the Keystone Beer Sickle, the Keystone Beer, the beer cone, snow cone. Yeah, it's all good. Do y'all like my screen name for tonight? Is my next question. Do y'all like my screen name? Do we approve of my screen name for tonight? This is your Lake Fork Popsicle coming to you live and in full effect. Man, yes, it's cold, boys. Like, it's real cold. Look, I had to layer up to come sit in the garage and talk to y'all. Like, I got a little space heater going. I've got 2 hoodies and 2 shirts. Like, it's real cold, man. And I know them fish are feeling it too. Hey, we'll talk about that tonight once we get other guys in here. They should be coming. I know Ozio's coming. He had some obligations with his grandkids. He'll be here, 15 minutes to 30 minutes. What? Don't know what any of that is. That's okay, though. Yeah, I'm not going to read that comment because I'm not real sure what Denny's trying to say right there. Unless he's outside my garage, and that's what he's saying. But anyway, sorry, got distracted. Squirrel! We chased it. My bad. We'll get back on track. So, yes, we will get into how to deal with some of this the best we can. Because I know, like, we're going to be dealing with a prolonged cold trend going into this weekend. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You're going to be dealing with a prolonged cold trend. And I'll kind of give you guys like the Cliff Notes version right now. Basically, what you got to do is you got to know the areas that they moved into when it did warm up. Look on the couch behind me. What's on the couch behind me? I don't see anything behind me. That is the into a butt seat is what that is. So, no, yeah, all right. You got to be in the areas that you know they moved into. That's the long story short. Like, you got to know where they moved into. You got to get in those areas, and you got to settle down, and you have to fish so dang slow to catch them. And if you haven't been on the lake or you haven't had as much time on the lake as you would like to during the warm trim when it was warming up a week ago, man, you know, there's only one way to really kind of cheat that, and that is to use the Fish Life app. If you're in this region If you're in Lake Fork, you want to see where I've been fishing. You want to see where Mike McFarland's been fishing. You want to see where David Ozio's been fishing. You want to see where Cody May has been fishing. Someone's head keeps popping up behind my boat. Don't do that, dude. You guys are going to creep me out, man. Like, that's weird. Like, if someone's head keeps popping up behind my boat, I'm going to get freaked out. Like, at least if I get murdered, it'll be on live YouTube. So everybody, there'll be witnesses. Y'all making me scared, man. What the hell's going on around here? I need to get in my fight or flight mode. What are we doing? All right. Good start to the live stream with the comments. Appreciate you guys trying to terrorize me. Anyways, the Fish Life app, man, we updated. I know I just updated the Your Lake Fork Guy pro tips on the Fish Life app. Just got a full work over today. Cody May did a tremendous job working his package over this week. He's got 40 tips, and we're going to talk to David and Mike tonight and see what's going on with their packages. I'm sure they will have some information. If it hadn't been put on there recently, it's going to be coming up in the next week or two. Because cool part about this is we got this cold trim. By the time we get to Sunday, Monday, we're back warm. We're warming back up again. And it's not a real hard warm trim. But after our first hard warm trend, it should be enough to kind of balance them out and get them straightened out a little bit, put them back in a regular pre-spawn feeding mode until they start getting on beds. And my early forecast for that is going to be, it's going to be an explosion on that full moon mid-March. Like, I think what's going to happen is we're going to stay a little too cold to get too much going on before then, but we'll have good pre-spawn bites. And then come that full moon in March, it should be like sight fishing, like bedfish all over every lake in the area. So between now and then, you just got to kind of play the cold trim, warm trim game. When it's warm trending, you'll catch them on the bank. When it's cold trending, pull back to the ditches and drains. We'll talk about that more in depth as we go tonight. I'll show you guys some of the stuff. So there's some exciting stuff on the Fish Life app. If you don't know where to find it, Fish Life is spelled with a Y, L-Y-F-E, Fish Life, L-Y-F-E. It's linked in this video in the description. But, man, we dropping some juice on the pro tip packages now. We've got the Lake Fork package that is what it's always been. It gets updated once a month. It's got good information on it. I just updated it a couple weeks ago. I kind of waited until the warm trim was going before I got that information on there because I saw that coming in the forecast. So we kind of were a little late getting that update done in February because I knew there was a lot of changes coming. But the Lake Fork premium package, $20 a month, man, you can get some great information on that. But if you really want the week-to-week changes and you want multiple lakes, you want to know everywhere I fish, you want to know where we're catching them that's like top secret that we don't ever talk about on YouTube or anywhere. We don't film there. We don't mention the lakes' names. You want to know where some of that stuff is? Go check out the YLFG Pro Tips. And then for the other guides, you can check out their personal packages as well. And you'll be able to see some of these areas. So right now, as of today, on the Your Lake Fork Guy Pro Tips, I just deleted all the old info, just completely wiped it clean and started over. And I dropped, let's see how many we dropped. We dropped 22 waypoints of information on here, and it's over 5 different lakes. And some of these are real small lakes. So it's just, when I say 22 waypoints, just one waypoint on that lake is all there is. Because it's like one of them's a real tiny lake. It's like top secret. Like, we've never mentioned it on here. We've never suggested anything towards it on here. I've never run a camera on there. But this is a lake that I know firsthand has 13-pound plus fish in it. And it's special. And, like, you don't just always whack them every time you go there. It's not that super stupid easy, but it has giants, and it usually fishes really good, and you catch a lot of good quality fish and have a real chance at a special one. So that's only featured on YLFG Pro Tips. So I'll kind of zoom out, but you guys can see on here. Now, there's a cluster of waypoints in there on Fork, of course, because that's where most of the waypoints are. But then you see the waypoints outside of the Fork area. Those are the other 4 lakes. So 5 total lakes, most of it being on Lake Fork. We can kind of get you. So as you can see, there's a bunch just on Lake Fork right there. And then we got some of those other smaller lakes like we talked about. So good stuff on the Fish Life Pro Tips package. We can kind of zoom in and show you some of the stuff we're talking about. Hey, man, there's a couple shell bed spots on here. You guys know about shell beds. Hard spots. Here's one. I don't know if you can see the writing on there, but like you can't see the writing, so I'll just read it. It says Fork Shell Bed 1. This shallow hard spot on this point can be a great place to catch big fish right now. Carolina rigs, square bills, jerk baits, and swim baits will work. So you kind of get what the area is. Drops you a waypoint on the juice, like where the sweet spot is. Tells you what the area is, what baits to use, how to catch them on that spot. And then we got some that are shallow areas. And, right now, hey, it's hard to stay on something day to day because warm trends one day and cold trends the next, you're in a bind. So, like this one is a shallow area, and it's just in a cove. And so on here, what it says, it's a great early spawning pocket. Fish have already moved in here. So if you want to know where fish moved in on the warming trend, this is where you go. There's like 10 different shallow pockets on this one package alone where you can go see where those fish have moved in at. And it tells you fish have already moved in here. On the warm trends, use weightless plastics, chatterbaits, and swim baits. On cold trends, fish the deeper timber in the middle and in front of this pocket using a jerk bait and a drop shot. So whatever the weather does to you, whether they're trending in, trending out, you got information on how to go about it. So as you guys can see, man, you get on that. It gives you exact waypoints on where stuff is, tells you exactly what to do there. There just ain't nothing else on earth. There's no other app. There ain't nothing that's going to be as detailed and up to date and precise as what you experience on the Fish Life app. And that is the YLFG Pro Tips package. And then, of course, we have our other guides that will be joining us. I expected one of them to be here by now. I'm going to text him real quick, make sure he's good. Because I expected to already have him in here with us by now. So we'll see where he's at. And then I know Ozio said he'll be coming. He should be here in about the next 10 minutes. But I wasn't planning on being on my own this long. So I was planning on having some co-hosts with me. So if you guys got some questions, man, ask them and we'll answer them for sure. Because I don't want to get into all the juice before we get the other fishing minds in here where we can bounce the ideas and kind of go back and forth. I feel like we get better information when we do that. Do I have any for White Rock Lake? I do not. Nothing for White Rock Lake. Cody May says he's here listening, but he can't join us. Oh, Heck says he wants to see who the next guest is. This is a good comment. He said he wants to see who the next guest is because he's got to do the Trump dance before they leave. That is a new tradition on the show, by the way. If you're a first guest, you have to show us your Trump dance by the time you leave. So that is a new show tradition. Whoops, I hit the wrong comment there. Here it is. So we started that on the last couple live streams. We've had them do Trump dances. So good stuff there. Ken Simpson says, got a chatterbait question. What size live magic shed? Typically 99.9% of the time, man, I'm going the 3.5 or 3.75, the small one, the baby one, right? But every once in a while, especially when it's cold, and this is the time, this is the time when I make that exception. When it's cold, I'll go to a bigger and go the 4.5 inch. Yeah, and go to a bigger profile. Just when I want to target a bigger one, like warm trend, typically on a warm trend, pre-spawn, they're feeding aggressively, and I want to target bigger fish, I'll beef up the profile and go to the 4.5 inch live magic shed on my chatterbait. Other than that, I use the 3.5 inch. And I trim the chatterbait skirt to where the chatterbait skirt ends in the first swim slot groove of the live magic shed. Ken says he bought some of the 4.5 and they seem a little too big. Here's a tip, Ken. So on the live magic shad, there'll be a little narrow part of the nose, and then there'll be like a little crook where it goes down. So it'll go like this, and then this part will go down and it'll widen out. Right there in that crease, where that crease ends, trim the nose of it off right there, run that up the skirt. It'll be a little wide up there at the top of your skirt, but all that's going to do is blossom your skirt out and make it have a little more bounce in the water. And then it'll be right. Like it'll fit on there good. It'll be a little shorter, a little more compact. It'll look right. David's trying to get in here. I see him trying to come in, and then he bounced back out. All right, let me see if I can get Ozio. Ozio had no video last time. David, if you can hear me on the back end, turn your video on, Goober. That's what I'm texting you right now. There he is. There he is. All right, no further ado. David, old man, Ozio, joining us.
We're in.
What's up, brother?
Another day, brother.
I hear you.
Woke up on the right side of the daisies.
That's true. That's true, sure enough. Man, I know you didn't go fishing today.
No, it's been a little bit too chilly, I guess, out there. But I will be there this weekend and probably next week starting. So it's getting ready to ramp up. Yeah. So let this cold shake out and we'll jump back in. And your guy was just talking about I use the big magic shad on on my chatterbaits. I mean, I get some big ones on that big one. And I say, I'll snap just a little piece of it off, but that's the one I normally use is that big one.
You trim it kind of right where that little notch is in the nose, like I was talking about. Yeah, it fits good when you do that.
It's got great action on it.
Yeah, and when you do that, it like fits the hook perfectly too. Like when you trim that little knot at that little notch and you butt it all the way up there, like the hook comes out right at the back of that first segment. It kind of fits perfectly when you do that.
Yep, that's it's the go-to. I mean, like I said, I've had them rigged before with even the Zaco, and the conversation we had last week. You know, I've noticed over time that I think the Magic Shad's a better bait than the Zaco is. I get more bites on the Magic Shad.
For sure, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, that horizontal tail is a big deal. The horizontal versus the vertical tail is a big difference in the way it reacts and moves the whole bait, really. So,
but I'll be pushing it hard, really starting Saturday. I think it's supposed to be still pretty cool on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Monday's going to be the best day, so it's going to be just to see how cold this. I know this water's going to be down into the 40s now by the time we get to Friday.
Probably,
yeah. So that moving bait bite's probably not going to ramp up probably until Monday, be my guess.
Yep. No, that's what I was kind of talking earlier on the phone to Cody, and Cody couldn't make it tonight. He got tied up with some other stuff, but we were talking about that and kind of looking at maybe that Monday evening is going to be the target, especially if you want to fish a smaller lake. Like Monday evening is kind of going to be when it starts straightening out. Hey, we got another guy to bring in right now. Looks like he's ready to go. Oh, big money, Mike McFarland in the house.
Shoot him up. Tear him up.
Shooting lasers at us. I love it.
Yeah, you know, I ain't as big as a bear, but when it gets this cold, I hibernate like one.
That's right.
Dude, what are you doing in your garage? Turn the heat on.
No, it's warm in here, but it's the in-between. It's literally like 5 steps, and you know, by the 4th step, I'm frozen.
that Arizona, California.
My house and my garage. This is beautiful. My shop here, I don't know if you've ever seen it, David. It's really, really nice, and it's all basically a perfect, what they call it, acclimate. So it keeps it at temperature no matter what. It gets hot, whatever. But it's the walk between. It's still so dang cold outside right now. Wow. Good to be here, guys. Good to see David. Good to see you, Billy. Yeah, I don't like this cold. You know, there's an old joke. I'll jump in here real hot. There's an old joke. They say that these are the worst days to be in the outdoors, and because it's a 4-layer day, okay? And most of us have a 2-layer pecker.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, look, I took a leak in my yard right before we started, and I was thinking about that exact thing.
Yeah, if you try and take a leak with all the clothes on, you're going to get some in there on you, whatever. It's just how it is.
It's a hard time trying to pull 2-layer sticker out of 4 layers of clothes. I guarantee you.
That's right.
That's a tough deal. No, hey, and I don't have heat in my garage, so I'm wearing like 2 hoodies, 2 shirts. I got a pair of like flannel sleeping pants on over, some wind pants on over, some shorts. Like I'm layered up to do this live stream tonight. Yeah.
I got this. I got this on instead of my bald head and cap. So,
man, we're talking about, you know, like if you're gonna go film, like, not today. Don't recommend anybody go on a day like today. That's the wind and how cold it was. That's like today is actually dangerous to go fishing. So let's not go on today.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna go this weekend, it's gonna be reasonable to go. Most likely, it's gonna be tough conditions because you're gonna be at the end of a long cold trend. And, you know, Sunday afternoon is going to warm up a little bit, but the water's really not going to be trending warm until next week. So the bite's probably going to be pretty tough. And kind of what I was talking about before you guys got here, and I want y'all to kind of put your 2 cents on it or elaborate is, man, you got to know where the fish moved in at on the warm trend. Like that's going to be the number one thing. If you can know where they moved in at on a warm trend, then that's going to help you go to the areas where they moved in. Now they've pulled back to those first and second little deeper water areas. And then you can just, because you got to fish so slow to catch them, right? So if you don't know and you're in the wrong pocket, you can waste a lot of time trying to be thorough and slow. But if you're in the right area, you can go be thorough and slow with confidence. Man, then you got a really chance to have some success on these tough days. And kind of what I was talking about is, dude, that Fish Life app. Like I know I just did a bunch of updates on the Your Lake Fort Guide Pro Tips today. Cody put a bunch of updates this week on there. And I was telling him, I'm sure you guys are probably about to be updating y'all's packages as well. But like, man, you want to talk about cheat code? Like, this ain't cheating in bass fishing to use apps because it's publicly available. Anybody can go purchase the subscriptions. But like, this should be considered cheating. It's so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the days are getting longer too. Still, even though this is cold, we're still dealing with a setup here through Mother Nature that because the days are getting longer, those fish are still going to stage up here towards the end of February. And I remember back, it had to be quite a few years ago, there was still an Alabama rig out in 12 to 15 foot of water at the mouth of staging of spawning coves and stuff like that. And we were smoking them on an A rig in 12 to 15 foot of water. And I mean, the water temps were under 50 degrees also on Main Lake. And so a lot of these were Main Lake spots also. So that's just an FYI for those. And I probably will do some of that on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Just thought for you. Just some thought for you. What I've seen happen over the years, not just on Fork. I've been here 12 years, but just fishing in as many years as I've had, what you happen to have when this happens, these back-to-back, say, 2 week apart cold fronts and everything, is the fish start to pile up. We had some fish, a very small wave that did move in, and it may not even been a wave that came from offshore or any of those offshore type fish. The wave that went up that we experienced from that warm trend was a wave that was kind of already in there, lives in there all year long. The added waves, the future waves that we have, those progressive fish that come in and migrate in, like Dave just said, they do it with the daylight growing. Some of them don't give a darn. And cold or not, they know, I think they know Texas can warm trend, cool trend, warm trend, cool trend in a matter of a week. We can have a 20-degree swing. So you'll see a lot of variations of waves, but your fish offshore, they're not moving. They're going to pile up in those key. It's like, if you really know what I mean, it's a no-brainer to go out there and find a pile up. They're so cold, can you get them to bite? So Alabama rigs, I can see, the live scoping deal right now with the jerk bait being probably the best way to fish for.
Big time. Yeah, I
know. But keep this in mind. Don't be out there live scoping after it's warm trended for 3 days.
Right. Get on bite. Yeah.
By Wednesday of next week, you better put the live scope away. You won't need it.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is how, like if you know these areas where fish were moved early, like if you got an area where, hey, you were catching them in the back of a pocket, then you can pull out to the middle and the mouth of that. And somewhere between the middle, the first drop, and the mouth of that area, you're going to find a pile of them. Now, sometimes getting them to bite is a challenge, but there will be a pile of them somewhere in there.
Drop shot.
Drop shot, jerkbait, and Alabama rig. That's the only 3 baits you need. It really is. Really is. Maybe a jig, if you're a jig guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a light jig, it depends on a lot of those pockets. I mean, you're not talking 7, 8, 9 foot of water out there in the middle, in the mouth of some of those pockets. And I know several of those pockets that have grass out there in 7 foot, so they can just be hurled up. Look at this criminal that just slid in here.
Hey.
What's going on, guys? How are y'all?
Your wife actually lets you join us from the house?
Well, I had to beg her because it's too cold in the boat storage this time.
He didn't even banish him to the boat locker today. How about that?
I wanted to ask Cody, did you get my message about the tumbler? About the that tumbler?
Oh, dude, I like it.
No, but I mean, if you want to modify it, my wife built him a custom Cody May's tumbler, and so we sent him a mock-up today. And if you liked it, then she'll go ahead and print it.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, I'll give her another project. We need to get guides night tumblers made for all of us.
I'm gonna tell you what, she's a genius at this. She can make anything.
Wednesday is guides night, baby.
She's a designer, and she can design stuff that's not even on the market. She's really talented at that kind of stuff.
Nice.
That's good. That's good.
What's up, Cody?
Mace,
Cody.
Yeah, that's his logo right there. That's what she put on there with a camo background. And so that'll be on a 20-ounce tumbler.
Nice. What's up, Mr. Mays?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I'm good.
Catching a lot on the drop shot. We had a guy asking what bait on the drop shot. You want to tell him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to use one of 2 baits, really. I mean, June bug red finesse bait, or a like Cody. Cody uses a tomato. I'll use a tomato, the June bug red, and then also one. I use the let's see, the KVD has a fat finesse worm that is in blue fleck that is It's a dark purple, and just because it's a little bit fatter and bigger, I get some better quality bites on it also in general.
Well, Cody, you throw that tomato worm, that Zoom Finesse tomato, right?
Yeah, I throw the tomato seed, and then it's really good this time of year. But like he said, June bug red, and my favorite color, like when Shad's present, Zoom makes a Zoom worm 4 3/4. It's called Blue Smoke or Smoking Blue. I'm sorry. And that smoking blue is really good too.
Okay. Yeah, but you probably don't use that till the end of April, middle end of April.
Bro, I use that thing all year round. If I'm seeing shad, I'm throwing it.
Even in 50-degree water, 55-degree water.
Yeah, because I mean, if there's shad present, they're gonna eat it.
Really?
In that color. So
keep it simple, baby. Let me ask y'all this: y'all think that if I rig a 3/4 ounce jig onto a drop shot weight, that I can catch them like that?
Absolutely.
I might get down on some drop shot if I can put a jig on there. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. Hey, use your jig as it's a West Coast thing for sure in the rocks, but we would absolutely run a 1/2 ounce jig as a drop shot weight. On West Coast, you get a lot of that crystal clear water, so you put your drop shot 2 feet, 18 inches, 2 feet up, your worm on the line and your jig. You're running 2 baits at one.
Yep.
I don't know how well it'd work in fork, but
no, Mike. I was talking about rigging a jig.
He's talking about rigging it up.
The jig is my drop shot.
But you're gonna have to put then you're gonna have to have a probably 5 ounce weight for the drop shot weight and your 3/4 ounce jig. I got you.
See, I got another one for y'all. I've got a way that I throw a topwater frog. It's on a Carolina rig. Works great.
Yeah, Cody throws well, hold on now. You're not talking about a hollow body. You're talking about a Zoom, horny toad, or a rivet or something.
No, bro. I'm talking like a topwater popping frog, man. I mean, like put on Carolina rig. It just suspends while it's going down the bottom. You know, it's great.
I've tested a bunch of these.
My question is, do you pop it? Do you still pop it? That's my real question.
Yeah, it makes a lot of water displacement.
There ain't no way, bro. There ain't no way.
It depends on the bite as far as when the drop shot goes. I mean, I've had clients even text me before and tell me that they just absolutely whacked them on a drop shot, putting like a Z-craw or a Magnum Rage Bug on there. And I mean, it gets bigger bites. So if you're in fish, but you're in let's say for a grassy area or whatever, and you're still using the drop shot on it, I mean, those baits will get you better quality, more so than just a straight tail worm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Something I really start throwing like right after spring, later spring, summer, is that Lake Fork tackle hopper worm with that tail on a Carolina rig. I mean, whenever you drag that thing, you can feel that thing vibrating, that tail just kicking, and it normally does pretty well as well.
Well,
I got away from that years ago, and I started throwing it again last year. And I don't, it's weird how you do that. You throw baits and you're catching so many fish with it, and then the next year you just catch yourself. You're not even using that bait no more, and you don't even know why.
Well, I tested.
It's crazy in that. It's crazy how things get put on the shelf, forgot about, new stuff comes along, we move along, and I think the industry wants to do that to us. But man, some of those forgotten, you call them old school stuff, they can be deadly. They can really be hot. And then there's also stuff that's been fished to death that just won't catch fish anymore. It just won't.
Yeah.
Well, just on an FYI deal, of course, big shocker that I tested this, but I tested about a dozen baits in a swimming pool on a Carolina rig one time. And you would be surprised. I mean, through lizards, through creature baits, through why are you laughing? You know I'm gonna do it.
No, because Cody's doing weird stuff down there. Cody's doing dirty stuff. Out of context. We'll just say
that. But of all the baits that I tested, dragging them in a swimming pool with Carolina rig, there was only one bait that actually would pop up off the bottom like this and then flutter right back down. One bait. What do you think it was?
The new Zoom wing Fluke.
Bubble fry.
Bubble fry.
Bubble fry?
I don't know.
Mike, got a guess?
I want to say that impact shad because I make that pop off the bottom, but I like where you're going. I don't know for sure on the bait.
And I was really surprised at this because a lot of these
what was it?
That I ain't said yet. All these other baits that have tail kicks on it and stuff like that. Surely they're going to come up, and when you drug them through there and look, the legs would kick on it, but they would stay pinned to the bottom while you're dragging it on the Carolina rig. The Fluke was the one that when you made a move with it, it popped up off the bottom, and then depending on the heaviness of the hook, it settled back down like this to the bottom. The only downside to throwing a Fluke, especially when we've got junk on the bottom, is the fact that the top of the Fluke is so thin that when you get your hook in there, if that hook pops out, you're here at Fork especially, you're going to hang it up on a lot of crap. That's the only
hang up on a lot. So that's why Mark Peck snapped that shad that he had at Carolina with full Carolina rig. If you ever watch him fish it, man, he was snapping it like it was crazy jerkbait. And he was a jerkbait. It was just a jerkbait ball, hook, tip of ball and chain. And he loved that thing, and it was easy for clients. But you know what, David, you just said that I think is the most important thing to making a fisherman better, period. You can listen to somebody, you can Google shit all day long. But the testing in the swimming pool, elaborate more what that did for you as a fisherman. Because I can tell you, I used to hate drop shotting. And until I went to a swimming pool myself and perfected what I did, I didn't catch fish with it. But that swimming pool deal is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the bait's naturally buoyant with a drop shot, and it's easy to see depending on the application you're using it for, the length of your leader. But it was really the best way to go in a lot of ways, even better than a Carolina rig under certain applications. Now, I catch a lot of crap about using it because it catches small fish, but it also catches a lot of big fish too. I mean, I've caught
Fluke or not,
a 12-pounder on it.
Fluke or Cinco or brush hog or whatever you want to put on Carolina rig, they would all pop off the bottom if we put our feet down and demand that these bait manufacturers quit putting salt in these baits that don't need salt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like there's a guy in Lufkin making baits with no salt. Like he's got a creature bait with no salt that's kind of like a brush hoggy type creature bait. I promise you I'm going to bust him on a Carolina rig on that because it ain't got no salt in it.
Right.
So it's going to have a lot of influence to it.
Yeah, that's just what I discovered.
And he makes a Fluke without salt too. So, I mean.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is
I want to make sure that you saw this comment here from my buddy Jared Carson. He said he thought David was going to wait until after the commercial break to tell us what that bait was.
Somebody telling you to land the plane.
Mike, are you uploading? Are you uploading?
Yeah, I saw that earlier. It'll be tomorrow morning. I'll get some. I got them done. I just got to use the Starlink that I have now, and it'll be tomorrow morning. We'll get her done.
Actually, and I'll upload mine probably starting when I get back on the water. A lot. I've been spending a lot of time at Welch with clients over there, and I've uploaded some of those locations there from Welch. But
no, we're talking about he's talking about YouTube content, Dave.
Yeah, my YouTube. So to Bo right there, Bo, thank you. I appreciate you being here too and supporting all of us. I'm sure. If you're fishing tomorrow, you're crazy because it'll be the coldest day. We're in a 48-hour freeze session. If you are fishing, tell somebody where you're going. Be careful. But yeah, I'll get something up for the weekend and what's going on and catch you guys up. So
it's 16 overnight tonight.
Mike, what's your normal uploads like? When can people typically look for your videos? How often? When do you post them?
So I'm usually filming every Tuesday and Thursday, and then they upload, and depending on whether I get to use my son's Starlink, he's got Starlink, he lives now on my property. If I can use a Starlink, they'll upload quick. If not, man, they take forever. So figure every Wednesday and Friday, you should see some new content, whether it be public or members, private only stuff. In combination cahoots with what we can work with everybody here too. Trying to keep it flooded out there. So keep everybody on fish is my goal. As and all we can. A lot of what I do is universal. I have people that'll call me and say, "Hey, your report, the way you gave your report on such and such, I used it up here in Kansas and caught fish."
A lot of the stuff that we do. Hey, and that's and I'm fixing to switch this back to the app again because I kind of threw this out there earlier, and David and Mike, y'all kind of glossed over this, but I do want to go in on the app a little bit because Cody's on here now, and I know he did a lot of.
Yeah.
A lot of information on his, so we're going to get into that. But definitely check out Mike's content. I mean, he's got a lot of informative stuff on there. But also, dude, when you guys that do subscribe to our app, like don't think because the information's on Lake Fork that it can't apply to Ray Hubbard or Ray Roberts or Louisville. Like these seasonal pattern movements that we're going to be documenting on this app from week to week as we update these spots or every 2 or 3 weeks, however often they come out. There's going to be a lot of times when we're in a holding pattern where like once they start spawning, the information may not change much for a couple months because it's the same thing going on. So
right, and I'm glad you just said that. I'm not trying to short anybody on follow me right now. If you have subscribed to me, there's not a whole lot on there, but I promise you that milk run that's on there is exactly what I'm running. If you're running it, you'll run into me. You'll see me on that water, and I've had very successful runs already on that water. It's just these crazy. I call them Texas two-steps, and we're in the bottom of the two-step. We're in the no side, the no fun side, the cold side of the two-step. The warm tread kicks right back in these, these waypoints that you're going to get from all of us, which are so variation of how we all fish in different places and everything, is going to be really, really beneficial to anybody, not just to catch fish for that moment, but to learn. I was thinking that this afternoon, I was like, this is just such patternistic stuff. Once you learn what you do this, and then you'll do it again year after year. Yeah.
Cody will own up to this year. Cody, was one of our early subscribers to the Fish Life app when it first started, and this was before Cody was guiding and everything. And I think Cody will co-sign on with this, what I'm about to say. But, man, I know it helped him in a great way to learn a lot about Lake Fork and contributed to his tournament success, and not just by going and fishing the spots that were on the app, but by learning from the app and duplicating patterns all over the lake.
Yeah, that's exactly
and other lakes.
And other lakes.
Yeah.
Expanding what you learned. Yeah.
6 to 7 days a week, in the oil field. So I didn't get a whole lot of time in the water. So I used the Fish Life app a lot. And like he said, I very rarely fished the spots that he put just because it was always congested with other fishermen that, that had the Fish Life app. But I used it to duplicate on other areas of Lake Fork and, and did really well. And, I've said videos before, but I did fish some of those spots, but I didn't fish exactly on the spot. I backed up from where everybody was because there's so many people there. It's kind of pushed the fish back a little bit and still did just as well. Well, and I did use it to, mimic different lakes. Hell, we had a championship on Lake Athens. I'd never been on Lake Athens, and we had that championship. I think Ozio was there that weekend. My partner didn't show up, and ended up catching big bass and got second overall in that championship just by – just kind of looking at the patterns on Fork versus, Athens. So,
yeah. Also, Billy, for your audience, the guys that I've tied up with Cody also, I've been shooting videos now for the last 6 weeks, and all of those are being uploaded to the YouTube also, let alone David Ozio Lake Fork Guide. So they're on YouTube at David Ozio Lake Fork Guide also.
David, do you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, David Ozio Lake Fork Guide.
No, sir.
Okay, good. So follow David on Facebook and YouTube. You'll see that. That's good.
So I've got a bunch of videos on there that are, anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes that are stuff pertaining to what's going on right now. Some of the ones that I deposited this week, I got one tomorrow that's going to come up is to deal with swim jigs, to deal with chatterbaits, just items like that for this cold water, what we're doing right now, and what to look for as the weather evolves.
Mike, I'm going to throw this to you first after I talk about this for a second, but I do want to kind of go in on the app a little bit here and discuss it because, man, it's just so unique, like what we offer there. Like, I don't know, like the people that aren't using it, I don't know that they fully understand what we're offering. You have 4 different guys that make their living doing this, make full-time guides, and we are documenting fish movements and pattern changes on one of maybe the most popular per acre lake in the country, some of the hardest fish to catch in the country. And I don't know, like there's nowhere else that does anything like this where you can actually take dudes that are on the water every week and watch every time a pattern changes what the fish do differently. Like, Mike, how educational is that, Mike? Because I know you're big on education stuff.
What I think is really unique, as you just brought this in my mind, is listening to you processing what you're saying. First of all, in regards to the app, what's making it very strong and unique right now, in my opinion, is that all 4 of us, none of us really fish the same. And let me elaborate why that's so important. Is if you're talking about one lake in specific, in certain places of the country, there is certain, like OH for example, there's only certain ways and that lake itself offers fish, period. Lake Fork is the ultimate training ground for any elite angler. Why? Somebody gets born and raised in these parts, grew up on these parts, Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, mainly Lake Fork. The reason is Lake Fork offers every single type of fishing, whether it's punching, heavy cover, deep water fishing. It's one lake, very unique, that encompasses all of the techniques that if you perfect yourself on fork, you will, if you're a master on fork, you will dominate out there in other lakes, other parts of the country, and certainly in the tournament world. So a guy can really come into fork and have the A through Z lessons on about bass. And not just the movements and how they're caught. So the uniqueness of the app is look at it. To me, it's how someone's looking at this app. If you are coming to this app thinking, man, I'm just going to run to this spot, make 2 casts, and get the biggest fish in my life, then you're not understanding what the whole point of this app is. It's not going to come. You may go to some of these spots and not catch a single fish. You can't drive away scratching your head. You have to. I would drive away saying to myself, I didn't catch them, but what was it? What can I? It's a learning process. They probably were there, and you just weren't there at the right time, didn't do the right thing, the right angle. Fishing's fishing. The concept is there are 4 successful guides right here. Some of us very, very successful for a long time, and been doing this a long time. And we have to be on that material. Can't always catch it. We have to be on it. Like I said, I'll use David. I'd love to watch. You don't know this, David, but I love to watch the season. When David works so hard, David will burn tanks of fuel right out the butt of that boat.
David's the hardest working dude, man.
He does, and I chuckle sometimes. I don't burn the fuel. We all have our own ways, our own strengths. But that hunger, that is, I'm going to find me. Why he's got to be on the fish. So back to the app. If you're going to take a part of this, look at it long term. Look at the ultimate outlook. That after a little while, you won't need a single guide anywhere you go in the country, anywhere. I'll end it with this. I am so confident in my fishing skills. I don't need any information from anybody. Tie some straps to my boat, helicopter me, blindfold me, drop me in a body of water anywhere in the world you want, and I'll figure out those bass.
Let me jump in here. Mine's going to be a little bit different than these 3 guys. All right. And I've talked to Billy about this in the very beginning, and the fact that I used to fish.
Ricky Cody, man. I'm sorry, David. Cody is out of control now. Man.
I saw that. I saw him there. I think it's because his wife let him be inside, so he's frisky.
I was a tournament junkie for these unders on Lake Fork for many, many, many years.
A master.
We won a lot of stringer tournaments there. And so I'm conditioning my app there to have a lot of these spots where there's where people that are fishing these weekend tournaments for unders. And I mean, that's as big a challenge as going out there and trying to catch an over in a lot of cases. And so I'll give you an example of this. Right before this Bass Champs tournament they had last weekend, when we had that warm trend, I had some spots to where I sat in one of the locations. I wanted to pull into this one spot, and there was a boat sitting there. I watched those guys catch no less than, I don't know how many doubles they had, but I know they caught 100 unders. All right. I watched them, and I couldn't even get there. So that was 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. My guys, we left, we went to some other spots. I came back there at 4 o'clock. I said, maybe I can get in and make some casts in there.
They're still there.
And finally we stayed there till dark and waited until they came out of there. And I said, dude, surely y'all caught over 100 there. He said, he starts laughing and he said, nah, we caught about 60. I said, that's baloney. I know. I sat there and watched y'all catch 60. So those locations I'm going to post on my Fish Life app probably this weekend, where those 4 spots were that I had for that tournament. I had some guys on Sunday that we caught 36. And, as far as the tournament, now this is the shocker that I have to deal with. And when I'm guiding people for like the Sealy tournament, the Berkeley, whatever the case, I've had this happen a lot in the past. This guy texted me that had it. He texted me on Sunday and he said, I made a big mistake. We didn't even go to the spots you showed us. And I was like,
why? Why'd you do that?
We only caught 36. We had about 9.5 pounds for the best 5, and they didn't go to them. I'm like, And I've had this happen in those other big tournaments also. So I don't know. My app is going to be loaded more with stuff like that for you guys who are going to fish these
more tournaments.
Whether it's a JC Outdoors, Media Bass, whether it's these stringer tournaments or these big fish tournaments, is what mine's going to be pretty well geared to. And then also big fish spots also.
So check this out, Billy. I mean, this is the way I see this. Look, you're going to learn from all four of us that are here. Yeah. But how about this? If you're learning this long-term, huge conditioning as an ultimate bass fisherman, and then David's even adding this different term where, what if you just happen to use, David's information one time and win one of your tournaments through the year that paid for all of your stuff. So this is an investment. This is an investment as well, not a commercial trying to suck you into this thing.
Guys, for the tournament guys, it pay off that way. But I mean, even for your recreational fishermen, I mean, you think about like the guys that, like what Cody was saying when he was using the app when he first started, before he was guiding and everything, he was fishing like 1 day a week. You know what I mean? Like a guy like that that's fishing 1 day a week, or God forbid, a dude that's from out of state that wants to come down here and have 3 or 4 days of fishing, man, you can either subscribe to the app or you can put a tank of gas in your boat and run all over the lake, spinning your wheels, and maybe not ever figure anything out.
Yeah. And how long does it take you on 39 miles of lake, 200, 27? How long does that take you?
Right. Subscribe to the app and at least know you're on working patterns. You know, now whether you can dial it in and catch them, some of that's up to you, but you're going to be around fish and you're going to have an idea of what they've been doing right away. And my whole point is that, like, I kind of put a title in the video, hey, is this cheating? Like, no, it's not cheating to use an app. It's a publicly offered app. But, I mean, even the top level tournament guys use these apps. They use the Fish Life app. The Elite Series dudes use the Fish Life app. I promise you they do. They've told me they do. They said it on camera that they do. The MLF guys, too. Those guys are using it. So it's not cheating, but it maybe should be, because, like, it is as much cutting the curve as you can get when it comes to landing on some fish real quick.
Here's an interesting thought, too. I think it's April 5th is when the Mega Bass is.
6th.
Yeah, something like that.
April 6th. Yeah. And so on that app, I mean, for all that time we're going to be on the water, I'm going to post that there are probably going to be a lot of people that are going to be sight fishing along about that time. You still probably will have a good shot at an over doing that. Maybe not as much in April as you do in March, but there's a lot of big unders that are going to be on these beds. And Cody, last year, was it Cody, when we had this one fish in the back of one certain location, and I knew that fish was huge as far as an under goes. And I had put this guy on that fish for the Mega Bass, and he didn't even go to it. Cody comes in there the day after the tournament and he catches that fish off that bed. He calls me up and he say, "Hey man, do you know about this fish back here?" And I said, "Yeah, it's at least a 270 or a 280. And he said, "Yeah." And so he turned him loose. The next day I go in there with another client, and sure enough, the female was sitting right outside the bed that day. So my client caught that male and that female. The female was an 8.5, and the male was like a 272. That was an under, which is going to win you $15,000. One of those hours.
Time of year is coming soon for sure. It is.
That coming that soon. Every hour. $15,000 on the hour. That's crazy. I think 7 times for the day. That's crazy.
Hey David, what's their off limits? You listen, I know we book a lot of guide trips at the end of March. I may have to do that because, you know, like, I can sight fish them pretty good.
I believe this one's 60 days or something.
Yeah.
For a guide. For a guide. Yeah. It's not like the Bass Champs where you just only have 12 days.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good, because I would dang sure jackpot if it was like a week or 2.
But from what I understand, though, as long as you don't have a guide license, you're not considered a guide. So go fishing.
Just outlaw it out here. Just outlaw it up. Hey, David, one guy did want to know.
Hey, look, I've been guiding for 12 years. Just ain't bought a guide license. That's all. I can't call myself a guide if I haven't bought a guide license, right? I mean, come on. Now, look, now you're starting to sound like a damn Democratic Party.
Hey,
with total denial. Duh, officer.
Don't get me started. All right,
Christmas trees.
I didn't agree. Junior Figueroa wants to know if David is the bowling player.
Yes, was 30 years on the tour.
He said he pulled up highlights of you in 94, 95.
Oh, yeah. I won the Dick Weber Classic in 1995. That was the biggest tournament I won, and that was worth about $100,000 just for that one tournament. And I broke also on that telecast, which you can look up on YouTube. I broke the 4-game record on TV in that show. Averaged 267.5 for 4 games.
I always love to point this out that not only was David a professional bowler, but he's a professional bowling Hall of Famer.
Hall of Fame, yes. I was going to add that. I was going to say you got put in the Hall of Fame, buddy.
Yeah.
Three Halls of Fame.
Do you get gold jacket too, like the football and baseball?
I got a jacket like that when I won the U.S. Open.
Nice.
Yep.
Hey, here's the deal. We can all try to be like cool about how good we are at fishing or whatever. None of us will ever be as cool as David Ozio. Like any of us can ever be.
Listen, folks.
Fish or no fish, that's celebrity status, bud. So that's all there is to it. It's a Hall of Fame. I don't care how. It's a sports star Hall of Fame. That's all. Look, he's blushing. But now you go fishing with David. Go fishing with David, and I have sent people his way, and I know they have fun. But a lot of that too is think about who you're with. You know.
Well, that's I don't even talk about that because I'm addicted to fishing, and here's a little throwback in that area. All those 30 years that I was on the tour, I was still fishing 20 tournaments a year in the middle of a full-time tour schedule. And they go say, how in the hell did you stay married? I have got the most wonderful wife that God could ever given a person. I mean, incredible lady. And she lived through all this. And I mean, it was the passions of what I had. And I even got skeeter boats on ABC Wide World of Sports several times back in those days, you know, so it was fun.
You know, what I always connect to it is we talk about David and his work ethic. Mike, you mentioned it earlier about how much fishing without customers he does, how much running around the lake he does, all this. And the work ethic that it takes to achieve that type of status at anything, to be one of the best ever at something, like that work ethic doesn't go out of you. Like that's in you. That's who you are. That's type A personality, all that. Like those guys that are special at something on that level, they have that juice to them. Like you can rest assured when you go out on a trip with David Ozio that the work's being put in because he's that type of guy that works hard enough to make a Hall of Fame. And that's a rare thing. Yeah.
Billy, you and I think so much alike. We just so much alike. That was all I was putting in my head was thinking, you know, David, he's talking about his love for fishing and stuff. It doesn't matter. Right? When you have a Michael Jordan in basketball, that unique star that gets to that final level is because of that heart, passion, dire straits must be the best, must be the success. It really is. And it doesn't matter what it's in, whether it's a Tiger Woods in golf or any of those just things, that achievement that it takes from, you know, Billy, you're a football player, college football, I mean, they're incredible. But that one more level, just that one more tier better is really that much better. And it's that much faster and it's that much more hunger. And so, you know, not to try and blow up David or anything, but it's the same thing with that. And so, again, that's what's unique of the app is you've got, look, I'm looking at 4 faces. I see mine. I'm scared of it. But I see, you know, we've got a celebrity, a Hall of Famer. We've got Billy. We know Billy catches fish. Billy's produced a lot of this for the app, for the whole thing. He's the one that built this stuff. So we know it. And then we got our young rookie here that catches fish. I was talking to someone the other day about it. I was saying, you know, the guy is booked all. He's so booked up. And they went, yeah, because he catches fish.
Yeah.
Catching fish. So,
yeah. Listen, some of all through that career, that early on, I was pretty fortunate to get with some pretty amazing coaches. But one of them told me one time back in my early days, he said, you know, he took me off to the side and he says, listen, he said, you're going to get out of this what you put into it, is what he told me in the early days. And I mean, that was something that I always remembered. And I mean, they always acclaimed me as being the biggest practicer on the tour. I bowled 200 games a week, every single week. Every week for all those years. And then going to the gym, I was 30 pounds lighter. I mean, going to the gym, running, I used to run 3-4 days a week. I mean, you'll get out of this what you put into it, because you know what? Second place in my mind was first loser.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's like kissing your sister.
Is first loser. And so that's carried over into the fishing thing. And I don't know, I'm going to get out of this what I put into it. And when I have to think about the clients, and they're investing some good money into this. We're just not going to back into this and say, well, you know what, they just didn't bite today. I'm going to every length, and I mean, it's why I burn $50, $60, $70 worth of gas a day, and we'll try to make it happen. And if we don't, you know what, at least we put in the effort.
Hey, and sometimes more than that with all the truck gas going to different lakes at times, Yeah.
And I'm famous for doing that.
Somebody wants to know if you know Mark Jeffries. Mark Jeffries is the former host of Bass Talk Live, like the original bass fishing podcast. And he's in the bowling world some kind of way. Do you know Mark Jeffries, David?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. I think he's just like a amateur bowler. I don't know, but I know he's in the bowling, but I don't know.
This whole thing wound down in about 2008. That year in 2008, I was senior player of the year on 2 tours. And that year, the PBA and the Generations Tour. And I started having wrist problems towards the end of that in 2008. And so I had it going into the next year. I had a major surgery on my wrist, and it just didn't take right. And I'd already been on tour for 30 years. And so when more I got to thinking about it, maybe this was a blessing from God, that I could retire on a high rather than continuing on getting older. And then I've seen too many of those other pro players that, have just slowly degraded. And, there's some of them didn't need to be out there anymore. And I think this was a blessing because they just never came back around. Now the wrist is fine now as far as that goes. But you know what? I'm thankful that that's when I transitioned more into the fishing. And then right shortly after that became a guide.
I mean, you got to have a little bit of extra flexibility in your wrist to fish a drop shot that much. That's what I hear.
I don't use a spinner rod. I use a bait
a little extra flexibility in that wrist, right, Bass?
Yeah, that's right. And a hand on the hip.
Don't you like flick cast that thing or something? Like, I mean, we fire the bait caster. We roll it up, we fire it. What do you like? Flick it, or what do you do with that little sissy stick?
I can put that thing in your coffee cup in your boat from 30 yards.
But I know, but there's a sissy stick. Do you like flick it? Do you flick it? I mean, like I said, we man up and just like. When I'm chalking this thing right here, it takes a man.
Listen, I already told Billy this last week. All you guys are big stick fishermen.
Just like it takes a kahuni bass to eat this. It takes a kahuni bass to eat this. It takes a kahuni man to throw it. And I don't have to flick it, I don't have my client the rod and go flick it. I'm just playing with you, David.
I'm a big stick fisherman about 30-40% of the day. But if that big stick fishing don't work very well, you know what? We're going to bring out something and get them something in the boat.
Well, look.
Listen, I'm actually doing research right now for the first time on Fork. I must find a spinning rod, not for drop shotting, but for these little tiny minnow baits, because right now, with this weather right now, anybody that could go out there, live scope, find them, work them with a jerk bait, and then find out the deal with the minnow. That's your best bet right now. And with that being,
I've got it rigged in my boat right now, and also use that same rod. It's an expensive one of Akuma's higher end rods, and a spinning rod and a really good spinning reel. And I use I got put onto that YKG weighted braid, and I've got some 16-pound weighted braid on it. That line is really, really nice.
Will you message me? Would you mind private message me if you whatever? That's my next thing. I got reels, but I just don't. Rod wise, I just don't feel confident on Fork.
Mike,
I still got a 6
before
to 12
you order some of them,
rod.
you need to try some of the ones that I had designed. Because I know we mess with David a lot, but I've got like 5 spinning rod setups now, and I had a guy start making me some, and I love them. Like they're sensitive, they're flimsy like you want them to be, but also I've got a video of a 10-year-old kid pulling an 8-pounder out from under a dock with it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I need. I mostly big fish hunt, unless my client specifically asks for unders, a big fish hunt. But part of throwing the little minnow deal here, you got to throw it on a small enough line, small enough rod, but you still have to have that manly rod. So that's my concern.
You guys get away with not having. I've got 10 spinning rods in the boat in one rod box and 35 bait casters in the other rod box.
Yeah, but see, the only difference between mine and yours, David, is whenever I grab mine, my voice gets deeper, not higher. So,
hey, remember I'm with Abu too, so I can pretty much kind of go get what I want. I just don't know what range you're using to accomplish that. To catch
a 6 to 12 line rated rod for that application will suit no more than an 8 to 14. But I mean, for that Demiki rig, I'll throw a lot of Ned rigs also. and putting people on fish for these so what I call stage walkers, where they can carry a fish across the stage. Hey. Hopefully it's a 220 or 230 pound class under, but that Ned rig works insanely good on Lake Fork.
But what about, rod, that's perfect rod for that type. What about if you were, focusing on just slot fish, 6 to 8 pound slot fish, live scope?
I've got all kinds of other stuff. I mean, I've got some heavier, I've got some 10 to 20s, and I've got a custom rod built that they can throw frogs on, as far as that goes. And I've got 50-pound braid on that reel, so I've got these rods, and especially in the spinning gears, all set up. And something else I've learned over time, I've got certain ones, some spinning reels you can flip from right hand to left hand, but there's only a very few that'll do that. So I've got some in there that are right-handed, and I've got most of them that are left-handed. And so it just depends. But I try to have everything that a client could ever need.
So we got this question 3 times, so I want to make sure that it gets answered. Do you ever throw a BFS setup? They're talking about for the minnows. BFS? I don't even know what the hell that is. Anybody know what that is? BFS? What about BFS for minnow?
Is that a type of minnow is what it is?
What is y'all's thoughts on the BFS setup? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the BFS setup is either yet. I'm not ringing a bell. If it's a nickname short for something, BFS, why am I blanking on that?
You're talking about as far as a Demiki rig goes. I mean, I just use like a quarter ounce.
Finesse system is what he says.
Finesse system.
Bait finesse
system? I don't know what that is. Look, dog, we in Lake Fork. We got like trees and dirty water and grass. Yeah. And 10-pounders. Like, we don't know anything about. This is not like David knows a little bit more.
That's not in my terminology as far. I've never heard that really before.
Yeah, hey, this is my version of a BFS. Y'all ready for this? Oh, where was it? Oh, wait, hold on, wait. Here it is. That's my version.
Right, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, big fucking stud. Did I say that? Sorry, big effing stud of a bass on a 10-inch swim bait. Now we're talking.
I've got similar stuff.
Yeah, big freaking swim bait. That's what it stands for, Mike.
In the finesse world, I mean, gonna have a Ned rig rigged up, Demiki rigs, using a quarter ounce weight with a variety. A lot of crush. I use a lot of Crush City on the backs of those, as far as that goes, and using the forward-facing sonar, and sometimes tackle them. But on guide trips, like I said last week, I don't use the forward-facing sonar that much on a guide trip. Not as much. It just depends on the application what we're doing.
All right, I'm gonna take this real quick. So, bait casting equipment to throw 1/8 ounce or smaller lures, that I can handle. That's so. When you're talking about pinging minnows, that's what I do. I do it on a bait caster still. Now, I will say there is an advantage to having a spinning rod to ping in a minnow because of how quick you can get the bait down to them on a spinning rod. And you're trying to, you got to be pretty quick stripping that line with a bait caster. If you don't do it right, your bait ends up pendulum out of where you want it to be. But I still do it on a bait caster because I'm on fork. I'm targeting big fish around heavy cover, and I want to have more control. And you're going to have more control on a bait caster, even with light line, than you ever will on a spinning rod over a big fish. That's my opinion. That's how I do it. I also want to throw a plug into a local guy. I don't know him nothing, but Scope a Dope Minnow from Cross Baits. He makes a lot of plastics with no salt in them the way I like them. He's out of Lufkin, Texas, down there in the Rayburn area. Dude makes good baits. We've mentioned him a few times here lately. But his stuff's legit. Like I said, I'm not getting anything out of this plug. He's a local guy. I like to support him, and he makes good stuff. So, I've been using the Scope a Dope Minnow, and I have pinged the minnow some this winter. And I am using an 1/8 ounce head, and I have a 6'9" medium bait casting rod that I designed that is very whippy. It's very whippy for a bait casting rod. So it's a lighter action bait casting rod. And I'm using 12-pound or 10-pound fluorocarbon line is what I'm using on that. And that's light enough for me. I don't want to go any lighter than that with the fish I'm targeting. And I can manage to throw an 1/8 ounce. It's no problem to throw an 1/8 ounce minnow on 10-pound fluoro on that 6'9" medium rod for me. So that is what I use for throwing the light stuff, the ping and the minnow stuff. That's what I use.
What I use more than I do, I don't really use the spinning rods that much other than that one I was telling you about, but I have got some 6 to 12 line rated 6.5 foot rods that I've got like 10 or 12 pound line on fluorocarbon, and I can put that 1/8 on there with the Demiki rig or with the wacky worm, or it doesn't matter what it is. It works absolutely fantastic. Most of the time it's 12-pound fluorocarbon, and I mean, it's perfect, absolute perfect. So
that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I do. David did as well, same rod, same reel, basically size-wise. But I've gotten my clients, my ones that don't use baitcasters, into some schools of fish that they just get their butt kicked with that setup. You know, if it's a 6 and a 7 back-to-back, they just get schooled. They, off a dock, you throw in a lightweight spinning rod under a dock and happen to have a 7-8 pound fish on it, it's schooled. So, I don't know for me that would work.
Cody needs to get going. I think he said he got some kids fixing to go to bed. Cody, you got any parting words? So that deal. So I figured out what that deal is. BFS is bait casting finesse setup. That's what it is. When they say BFS, they're talking about bait caster setups.
Okay, makes sense. I do have that.
So
it makes sense now.
No, I really wanted to hop on and kind of talk a little bit, but I enjoy this and enjoy y'all. So. Look forward to next Wednesday. It's going to be a lot warmer next Wednesday. So,
yeah, no doubt.
The whole week.
Be safe, bud. Be safe out there.
Appreciate it, guys.
Big shocker. Huge shocker. David, do you know what that hand signal he just gave was?
I have no idea.
I didn't think so.
Tyrus? Is that something Tyrus uses on Gutfeld?
Cody, you're out of control, so that's very inappropriate.
And what does that mean?
I've seen Tyrus do that, but I don't know what it means either.
Ozio, we'll tell you behind closed doors one day.
Cody, sign off with a Trump dance.
Oh, don't forget about me wetting my chopped liver.
Okay.
Catfish bait.
Oh, you don't want us to answer that.
I'm an old part too, man. I don't know some of that young buck stuff, man.
Cody, you got to do the Trump dance before you leave.
Oh, Lord.
Trump dance, come on.
He done moved zoomed out on the camera. There it is.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, buddy.
Nice.
All right.
Code.
Yeah,
so I got with Cody leaving here now. Billy talked about it, and now that I'm clear what you mean, I will give you my 2 cents on this answer to your question, sir. Far as using a bait caster, period, watch the elite anglers. You will not see one of them doing that with that minnow type bait. And it's for what Billy said, for that presentation's sake, especially if anything vertical and stuff like that, you cannot peel line off that bait caster fast enough to work that presentation. So spinning rod's always going to be the best. Does it mean we don't?
Mike, hold up. When they're at fork, you don't see a lot of spinning poles.
Right. Well, and you did, though, watch them. But the whole point, that's what let me finish, is, sometimes you have to change it. A tool doesn't necessarily do the job. And so you have no choice. So with that being said, yeah, there are some ways, with that bait casting and lighter baits, it's all about the right rod, the right line, the right setup, obviously, to do that job. And if you're vertical, though, then you won't see hardly any at all.
Yeah.
But still with that forward imaging and things, yes, some of the systems, the bait casting stuff is and like I said, it's just something you got to get out there and try and experience what's going to work for you. That's the deal with fork. Are you here to go catch unders, the slot fish for tournaments? You're going to have one setup that is completely different than if you're coming here trying to catch share lunker. If you're down where Trey McKinney was, where the kid was winning last year, you're not going to be down there with 6-pound tests throwing this minnow on live scoping 8, 9, 10-pound better fish. You're just not going to do it. If you are, you're going to get your heart broke a lot. I promise you.
They weren't throwing light line either. I think it stated that he was throwing 15-pound line.
Yep.
On that, he was also using maybe a 1/4 ounce, if not a 5/16, and then he was having that thing fall down.
Most of his fish on a jerkbait.
Yes, a lot of jerkbait fish, a lot of jerkbait fish.
But he did catch a few on a Demiki rig too. Trey McKinney. Now,
but my whole point was that's why we got I got them in my rod locker too. That's why we've got this, the coolness of fork, the versatility that you got. I may have a certain bait casting rod that I break out my little finesse jig with, and then I go in the backwater and go to a full size regular jig, and I got a completely different rod that it goes on.
Yeah.
It really is just, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you fishing for it for?
Mike, you hit it on the nail. You hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about the versatility of Lake Fork. It is one of the most versatile. And, we got a lot of that in East Texas. Rayburn has some of that to it. Toledo has a lot. Toledo and Fork are very similar in that aspect. And there's a lot of small lakes that have versatility to them in East Texas. We're just fortunate where we live that you do have offshore hard spots and shallow hard spots, and you got grass and you got timber and you got brush and you got emergent vegetation and frog water and dirty water and clear water and all that in one lake. Like
in one lake,
a lot out here.
A whole lot. And it changes. I know you probably log a lot of information. I know David logs information. I certainly log so much information. And I can go back from year to year, overlap them, lay them together, and none of it even really meshes up. Obviously the moon phases are the moon phases. The sun daylight growing longer and stuff, meaning the winter solstice, the summer solstice, those don't change. Our dates don't change, but things change on what is happening. I remember in 2016, January 8th specifically, our very own Lee Livesey was posting that he was on a bedfish, an 8-pounder bedfish. He was in the trout pond up in Birch. January 8th. We had no winter that year. None. They got to 32 degrees. Yeah, look at that. Look at all those logs. Yeah. That's why also, guys, here in regards to the app, that log that you just saw, David, all those logs and everything, is also what you're getting with these guys in this app. Not to make it an app commercial, but I do want to educate people about it. That information right there, that is your library of pain. That is your piggy bank of pain. Pain, tears, and earned deal that allows you to go out there, David, and my book's the same, make a decision on where those fish are, what they should be doing from your years of experience. And you start following the app, you get that immediately. So, if I, for example, wanted to follow in the footsteps of David and learn that book that he just gave me, all I got to do is go on this app. I don't have to go through the pain steps of how many days are in those logs that David just flashed us. Hundreds of days, thousands of hours. Yeah. Okay. And so, that's unique. But Texas is so cool that in all that logs, if I may just finish up real quick, within all those logs, my logs, whatever logs, they don't have to be date to date. It's still relative to water temperatures and those things. And so they're they're spawning on January 8th with no winter. Now we're having a hard winter. They're still going to spawn. This, it's all just has its place in its slot. And that's what the experience, the ultimate seasoning does for guys.
Well,
Where to be.
The big key to the log system to me is making sure you get all the details, the moon phase, the cloud cover, the wind, direction and speed, the water.
That's exactly what I put in there.
Lake level. You have all level.
Yeah. I take every guide trip, every guide day, and at night when I get back, I go through, I list the guys' names, what lake we were on. I'll go in and talk about every place, every stop that we made, where it was, what baits we threw, then, lake level, what the conditions were that day, wind, no wind, whatever the case. And, maybe we could have done this a little bit better, or it was a home run day, whatever the case. And that's everyone.
Hey, that is a Hall of Fame work ethic right there.
Well, exactly. How many guys have the energy at the end of the day to do that?
Well, he's it.
First of all, let me back up, not take the camera here, but first of all, 1 out of 100 guys would only think about that at the end of his day. When he got home so tired, just parked the boat, wiped out, his wife's yelling at him for cooked the steaks, whatever it is. We wouldn't even have the thought in his mind, hey, I should sit down and log this. To have the thought, first of all, and the ones that even have the thought, the percentage of them that go through with it, that's exactly what that is. That's VIP standard.
I did it for 2 years, and then I was like, once I felt like I was getting,
this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like as a sample. it shows all the writing. It'll have the date, and then it'll have all the log in there for that date.
Wow.
Every page that you can turn. That's what it is. It's all the data for the whole year, every day that was on the water, and what the outcome was, and what. So every single one of them are just like that.
That's impressive.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I'll give you an example as to why. I had a client, had to be 6-7 years ago. I thought it was 6 or 7 years ago, and there was a certain pattern. This way, this lake is setting up right now, matched it. And I was thinking, when did I take that guy out? And so I pulled out every one of these, and I knew the ballpark of what I thought the time was on it. I got to thumbing through. I knew I remembered his last name. I go through them, through, and I finally find it. And it was only 5 years ago. And it's like I said before, we were throwing the A-rig. It was the same exact water temperatures. It was the same conditions. And that's why I brought that up earlier. And we were throwing an A-rig out in 12 to 15 foot. And I don't know how many 6, 7, and 8 pounders we caught in areas that, and I remember right where the areas were too, that were staging, getting ready to do the business, after this cold snap, rolls over. And so I go back and I look, and then I found the date. I go back through the back pages, find that date. I read off exactly what we threw, what the conditions were, what the water temps were, everything. Got it all logged.
Yep. And it's not 100% because, like that A-rig deal, man, a few years ago, it was so much more effective than it is now. Like, you can still catch them more. Don't get me wrong, you still catch them more.
And I have seen that happen.
But there was, a few years ago, it was like lights out, and now it's like catch one here, one there. It's just not in, Mike, I think you said earlier, sometimes, or maybe you, David, I don't know. Some of these baits just don't work as good as they used to. They just don't, man.
Well, and that being said, I already had them, but I tied on some 3/4 and 1 ounce chatterbaits, and going in those same areas some of these areas are a little bit cleaner. They're not exactly loaded. A chatterbait and wood does not go together.
Not good.
And so, but these places, there were some of these places where they was a little bit cleaner, and I was looking on the forward facing sonar, and I could watch that bait. I could see it real easy down there, and I'm thinking, well, here was the thing that shocked me the most, was that I could have swore that this date that we caught all them big fish was like in early February or late January, and the water temp was like 48, 49 degrees. And when I found the date, it was like March 3rd is when we were on the lake, is when that happened. And so that's the advantage of having this data. And I'm thinking, wow, this is getting close to setting up the same exact way. It's first year that it's going to match on this. And so I can go look at these areas. And if they don't hit that A-rig, this 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce chatterbait may be a good backup.
Yeah. Because the last 2 years we've been right at their own beds. Like within the next few days, they've been on beds.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Last year, March 4th, 5th, and 6th, I was slamming them on beds.
Well, I know me and Cody had them in the last week of February last year and the year before. Like
I did a video. I put a video out on my personal deal saying, look, guys, potentially the best bed fishing we're going to ever have on Fork in front of us. Of course, Mother Nature surprised us with 27 inches of rain over the next 6 weeks following. That's what I mean about Texas too. How do you adjust? What do you do? We had over pool. So you got these logs the logs seem perfect and everything starts to line up, and then but you're 2 foot over pool. What if you're under pool? And man, that's what makes fishing it's an art. It's so awesome. Again, that's why I like this. I haven't put in as many waypoints as you will see on my part of the app, but it's coming. I promise you.
Mine's the same. Because I haven't spent a ton of time on Fork. My clients in general like to catch a lot of fish. And when that warming trend was here, I did have a bunch of guide trips here on Fork, and we were averaging 30, 35 a day during that warm trend. And we were catching some slots, but not a ton. And that was something that was really kind of interesting, that I would have thought that more of those big slot fish would have moved up shallow. We were only catching 4 and 5 pounders, but did not get a hold of a 6 to an 8 pounder, that was up in the grass on the bank or whatever the case. But we'll go over to Welch or something and catch 40, 50 or 60 over there. And they're on beds there right now.
You will see the next wave of moons have big fish on Fork. So,
that full moon in the mid-March, I feel like we're leading up to, and I said this before you guys were on here tonight, like that full moon in the middle of March is going to be when it's just all leading up to, there's going to be an explosion of bedfish.
Big one. The week before, the 7 days before, start looking. Yeah. It'll get better and better.
Mikey, I don't know, you may have never watched it. So I did a video several years back, like 3 or 4 years back now, when the elites were here. I think it was when they were here in April, and Lee ended up winning on the 42 pounds on Sunday. And there was a moon phase involved in there, like there was a full moon during the tournament. And so I was able to track through what I was seeing on guide trips and what I saw from almost 100 of the best anglers in the world do for 4 days and hear what they did on the practice days, I was able to really track a 2-week period around the moon cycle and kind of really get really well defined on when does the spawning activity peak, when do they pair up the best, when are the big ones there the most, and when does the spawning activity taper away and the shallow point deals start to come into play more so. And it was a year where the lake was low, so they were either on a bed or they were on a shallow point. Mm-hmm. And it was super easy to see when are they feeding kind of pre-post spawn and when are they spawning. And it was a great data source to gather. And so what I saw on that was they move on the full moon mostly. Like the day before or the day of is when they move. And then they'll be in those spawning areas for like 7 days. And it's like that spawning activity builds. And 3 days after the full moon is when the spawning activity is really good, all the way out until about 6 or 7 days after the full moon. That's when the spawning activity is at its peak as far as big females, pairs on beds. That's when you see the bed fishing really go off. But when you're in that 7-day period leading up to the moon, it is super high on the feeding stuff. And the peak of
that's what I meant. That's the coming part of it.
Yes.
That's when the
actual mating, correct. Good. I was thinking I had to go back and learn some more things at first, but now we're on the the coming part.
That 7 days leading up to the full moon is like and then 7 days after the full moon is like spawn. And
that's exactly what.
Right on the moon,
what I was
right on the moon. There's a little bit like there's like that window like 2 days before the moon and 2 days after. There's kind of a blend of each where you have like some starting to spawn males, not as many females, but some still feeding. And then 2 days after the full moon, you still got a little bit more spawning, but there's still some feeding. And then when you get to that 3 days after, it's primarily spawn for the next 4 days. And then it starts tapering back away from that into feeding.
That's a great way to look at it. And I just was basically saying the ones that come in. So like if I was going to try and throw the swim bait, for example, and target feeding pre-staging females, they haven't gone in stage yet, but they're going to gorge before they go in. So I'm going to hit my points and things, my little secondaries with this. That's going to be 2, 3, 4 days before the moon. By the time the moon comes, man, the shell-bedded feeders are gone because they're already moved in to spawn with the moon. Yeah. So that makes good sense what you're saying, and I've never taken the time to look as closely afterwards like you did. Yeah, that's pretty unique to learn that.
I had a really good opportunity with all those guys being here and being able to talk one-on-one with a lot of them about how what they were seeing in practice, what they saw throughout the tournament, and we saw in that tournament. What I believe is there was a full moon, like right before practice, and so during practice, guys were like, "Man, it's a sight fishing tournament." And then by the end of the tournament, Lee was winning on the points, and Patrick was second, and he was on the points. And only one or two of the bedfish guys made it to the top 10 because of that.
I have witnessed what you're just saying now. I have been on Pump House Point. Okay, actually, let me back up. So right now there's a waypoint on the app. We follow me. It's in Dale Pond. Okay, and it's in a canal area. It's in a like a deer trail where deer come and go. So bass come and go to get into the backwaters. It's sheltered. We always start there just because the mornings are freezing cold in January, February. It's the right thing to do. And as we break out of there and we're getting warm and trended, we hit a lot of those shell bed points for those pre-spawning, pre-staging females. Years ago, and Mark Peck taught me this run and this technique. Well, years ago, I was on Pump House Point. And at 9 in the morning, those females showed up, and we were throwing little Carolina rig flukes, the big fluke that Mark had, and we smoked like 38 pounds. Well, it was 3 days before the moon. The next day, I caught them again, and then they were gone. And within 3 days, we had the full moon. Within 3 more days, those fish were spawned and back out post spawn on the same points in the deeper water. That's how fast it happened.
Some of them come and go pretty quick, for sure.
In a 10-day cycle.
Bigger ones tend to go
come in, feed, go in, spawn, come back out. In a 10-day cycle. Unbelievable. So 3 days before the moon, 3, 6, 7, 8 days, 7 days after the moon, you have a 10-day cycle, and these fish are finished.
Now, does that happen in April also? The same exact cycle?
Huh?
Does that the same exact cycle happen in April?
Yes, you'll have multiple cycles. Now, biologists, I discussed this with many biologists in my career multiple times, and they all say the same thing. In spawning with anything, any creatures, Mother Nature's unique. It doesn't always have the exact rules. So you will see some fish just oddly enough here and there, random, in the middle of nowhere, off the moon, completely off the cycle. But generally they say you'll have 4 waves of spawning fish in a good cycle on a lake, which is a full moon, new moon, full moon, new moon, 2 months. All of March, all of April.
I would say here at Fluke, we get at least 5.
Right, and just for a general rule of thumb, and the first wave is usually, this is the most important thing that biologists all agree on. The first wave is your early wave. It's your biggest fish, your most mature fish, but it's about 15% of what's going to spawn. Yeah. They say only 80% of the fish will try and spawn. They don't all spawn. Some never spawn. But your first wave, about 15%. Your next wave, your big main wave, will be 25 to 40% of those fish in the middle. So we're going to have 2 weeks, your early spawn. Then you're going to have 2 to 4 weeks, the main spawn. Then you have the tail end, which is your last remaining what's going on. And then a place like Fork, my God, our weather stretches them out, pushes them out. I've seen fish on beds down south in July.
I was just going to say, I've caught him in June on beds.
Here's what we got to remember about fish and how many fish. First of all, the population that lives in these East Texas lakes, especially Fork, is just unbelievable. Make no mistake. Fork fish are hard to catch, but there's a ton of them in the lake. Okay. Yep. And so there's got to be time for all these fish to cycle through, and they're not all on the same cycle like Mike's talking about. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is you get those things strung out. And look, these fish are also really, really dumb. Like, let's be honest, they're not intelligent creatures. They don't have critical thinking capabilities. So some of these fish, okay, especially like males, a lot of males will come in and spawn and do their thing with a female and then fry guard and then rest up for a couple weeks and another moon cycle hits and it's still 73 degrees. And they're like, hey, let's go spawn. Like, they don't know they just spawned. They don't have a memory, dude. Like, they don't know that they just spawned.
That's your key spot on, and that's what's unique about our park, too. We're semi-subtropical here, so it's all about temperatures. I did a test with the Arizona Game and Fish Department fish tanks, maintaining temperatures. Leave that tank in a spawning temperature, and the bass will continue to try and spawn all year round. Just constant cycle.
Some that spawn in fall. That's why those ones that spawn in fall do, because all they know is moon cycle, 70 degrees, I'm going to the bed. You know?
In fall, we get a spawn in fall. If the temperature gets into the spawning temperature range and stays there for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to end up having a spawn. I had an almost 9-pounder this November. Dripping tail came from that.
I think you need a moon influence to coincide with that temperature.
100%, right. Billy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All of this, everything's got a mesh, but it does happen. It happens a lot. But
this is what I love about. So this guide's not idea. This is the reason I love it. Is because you can sit here and we can bounce these thoughts off each other like this. And on that note, Mike, we have a conversation that we have to get to at some point. And if David can be, because I know me and Mike have kind of taken over here, but David, you can be a little patient. I'd like to just go ahead and get into it if you're okay with it, Mike, and this is going to be in the most respectful and friendly and in the mind of educating everybody way we can. The term shell bed. Because here's my deal. I'm going to tell you where my issue with that term comes from. It's not from you, brother. I know when we weren't talking a lot, you may have thought that I was like irritated with you or trying to go at you when I was like, hey guys, these aren't like what you think they are. It was because every other comment on Bassmaster was these shell beds. And I'm like, dude, we don't have oyster reefs in Lake Fork. Like, and what I've seen when the lake's been low. So what made me really think about this a lot, when the lake's been low, I see all these areas that we think are shell beds for years, and there's rock all over them. A lot more rock than I ever would have imagined. So tell me your opinion of what is a shell bed? What does it look like under the water? How are the shells setting up? Because I know there's shell that exists. I've had them clamp on my line. They're in there.
There's clam shells.
Yeah, but how much?
It's a muscle.
Like oyster reef in saltwater, though. It's not the same thing.
It's okay. So to clarify, not what happened between you and I, because nothing happened between you and I.
No.
There's
we never
still, even with all of the teachings and talkings that I've put out there, There's still a misunderstanding 100% of the shells and the shell beds and what constitutes the shell beds. Okay, so on my right hand here, I have a clam. It doesn't get any bigger than a silver dollar. In my left hand, I have the mussel. Okay, these are two. This is a clam. This is a mussel. Shallow water, less than 5 to 6 feet, is where you'll see a lot of these white mussels, or I'm sorry, clams blown on the banks in areas. Out in front of those is where these exist. There's softer bottoms. It can have a semi-soft bottom, but that is a clam, and that is the shallow shell bed. It is a shell bed, but it is not the shell bed that I have potentially, I want to use the word proven, but no one's ever scuba dived down there for me or anything. But with the experience of what I've had with what Mark taught me, with how many times I have run into them, not just clamping on my line, but just always clamping on our line, and the feel and the vibe that you get, the fish, the consistency in the bait fish being here, and stay with me and I'll finish. So this guy generally will scatter all over the place. You can find them in a foot, 2 foot of water, but you'll never, ever, ever find them oyster bedded up.
They're scattered out, right?
With exception of areas that are current oriented and specifically a lot that has to happen. Okay, for them to be in the bed area, there has to be a lot of plankton. Extra plankton. This is all about the plankton, the zooplankton, phytoplankton. So when you're looking at, like, I remember when you did the video, and a lot of those shallow rock areas weren't what I personally would have claimed to have been this shell bed. Gotcha. Now, I might have been mistaken fishing some of those and said, hey, that feels like shell, or it feels like clam.
Right.
But the clunkety clunk of this, in some of the areas that I've really fished, this is a perfect one. This scratching off of it is from our jigs going over it and over it and over it and over it. Yeah. And I've had my jig break through and snag them and bring them back from the jig breaking through. It's a specific clunk feel. It feels like round river rock. We don't have round river rock in Lake Fork. We do have rock, and you can be mistaken for, calling it shell bed. And I'm not saying some of the thoughts that I have aren't shell bed, but I promise you majority of them are shell. And once I really got my hands around it and understood about north winds, south winds, and how the current sets up in this lake, I can really prove to you that these are shell bed areas. Now, when the lake went down, those same areas, like Heartbreak Ridge, for example, they have less shell on them right now. The shell's moved. It's not there. And since the water's come back, I still have not discovered as much shell. And believe it or not, I'm not catching as much fish in it. It's not about the shell. It's the plankton that's there. But that's the way I see that. So I know I saw the lake too very low. And running around, never once did I see, when I saw that rock, did I say, hey, I was mistaken for shell, because I never thought any of those areas were the shell bed. Those were good hard bottom areas. But most of the shell stuff, example is like a lot of the roads, the 515 East Bridge, it's underwater. The sides of that are loaded with this type of shell. And that's deep water. That's 18, 20 feet of water. And so that's what Mark generally taught me, was that 14 to 18 foot range is where you want to find this.
So let's talk about that. The 515 East Road. Let's talk about that particular one. So the sides of that, could that not be broken asphalt mixed in with shell?
It could be 100%.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do we know? We don't know.
But I think, so let me use I'll use another one. We're share all our spots. Little Mustang Point, the transition between Big Mustang and Little Mustang, there's a road that runs through there. Yeah. And then up on top of the road where everybody thinks is a shell bed is all clam.
Yeah.
Up in the shallow flat. Then you got the road. Well, it drops off. Out in 16, 18, and 20 feet of water are these guys. And these are the ones that I focus on. So and they're usually like 14 to 16 feet, 18 feet. So like Heartbreak Ridge, for example, the water was never low enough for us to see, how much of these. They do move around. Another great one, I don't want to plug somebody else, but if you watch Fish the Moment, if you'll go look at his lesson, he's really good at whatever you call editing videos and stuff. And he did a tremendous elite pro visual of what happens, not so much in Fork, but in a lot of current lakes, Mississippi and those ones, and the shell that's set up there and the way they set up there. And so when I'm fishing Fork for shell, it's these guys, and it's absolutely wind. All about wind. Wind blows north, I fish north blown shell beds. Wind blows south, I fish south blown. Not all year. And I can tell you this: since the lake went down 6, 7, 8 feet, and everything is not the same as it was previous. Okay. And that shows they move around, they do relocate.
All right. So for those that haven't seen the past videos, here's what I figured and guessed at, and took my best articulated guess at was I obviously there's shell in the lake. There's no doubt. There's the big ones and the little ones scattered all over the lake here, there, and yon. And there's, we've talked about this in the past, Mike. Like it used to be like guys thought these shell beds were some precious thing where there was like 10 of them. There's like hundreds, if not thousands, of these shell beds.
Yes. So right.
And so what we know is, and here, let's talk about what we agree on, because I know we agree on this. The areas that do accumulate some shell, however much or little it may be, those are the areas where the wind blows the plankton over a high spot. That's where, now that high spot may be in 20 foot of water coming out of 50 or 40, and that high spot. Yeah. So you got this much water with plankton in it, and as it goes over that ridge, it gets condensed to here. Well, all that plankton that's scattered in 50 gets condensed to 10 or 20 or whatever. It gets thicker on top of that ridge. That's why the shell does accumulate there.
Absolutely. And all that's doing is giving us a scientific approach to be sure that, like I heard Cody talk about his drop shot. He said, as long as there's shad there, that drop shot catches fish. So I've proven it. I know, Bill, you've been in my boat when we were first experiencing, teaching, learning about shell beds and stuff. You can go out there and be graphing, and all of a sudden you'll see the bait ball that's right above the shell bed. It's crazy, and once I really identified those deep 16, 18, 20-foot shell beds, day after day, it would click, and now I just chuckle. I'm like, God, look how they relate together. So, the relation is unbelievable. And bottom line is what you just said. As long as there's current, which concentrates plankton, who cares about the dang shell? The shell, we don't have to talk shell anymore.
Doesn't matter.
We ain't got to talk shell anymore. We just got a location that's high plankton source, which has shad, which the bass come to feed like a deer feeder.
Whether it's shell or rock, it doesn't matter. It's where the plankton gets condensed. If there's shell, that's where it's going to gather. And if it's rock, well, wherever the water's getting condensed, the current flows harder over that and is going to wash out that hard stuff, the rock that's there as well. So the rock and the shell are going to coexist in the same areas. The hard clay, the iron ore, all that stuff is going to coexist in the same areas. And here's the best part about it is wherever that plankton gets condensed, the other thing that eats that is baitfish. And so wherever the plankton gets condensed, the baitfish gather and therefore starts the food chain that we're looking for.
That's exactly the whole principle, and that's what I wanted people to really see ultimately about it. So that's a pro level understanding of what they mean by shell. Great analogy. Glad you brought it up. Never had any hard feelings about any videos. Good.
So for the synopsis for the weekend angler that doesn't have as much time on the water and doesn't understand as much of this stuff, maybe, and not that this is that hard to understand, but you just haven't ever maybe spent enough time out there to think about it as much as we have, right? So for that guy, what you want to find is hard spots. Whether it's shell,
in essence, yes,
rock, you're looking like when you hear that bass prefer a hard. Here's another thing, Mike, that I want to get your opinion on. David, you can chime in on this one too. For years, we've heard bass love a hard, clean bottom. Do they, or do they love the plankton that gathers the bait fish for them? Because the hard, clean bottom's where the plankton gathers, dog. Like that's what it is. It's not that they prefer a hard, clean bottom over a soft
that's
bottom.
the key then. So, it's easier to say you're looking for that hard bottom return area, extra hard bottom, hard return area that has bait fish. If you see bait fish above that extra hard bottom return, you're probably going to catch some fish around it at some point.
Active, right? So that's when it's active. So those hard spots exist when the wind doesn't blow. When the wind doesn't blow, the hard spot's still there.
Brent Ayler's a good friend of mine. Yeah, Brent Ayler's a good friend of mine. I moved here in 2000. In 2013, we were in Vegas at the Vegas iCast show, and I saw him, and I told him I was moving to Texas. He said, that's where you belong. You'll do well there. Well, when he came out in 2014 to fish the TTBC, Texas Toyota Bass Classics, I believe it was that's when Keith Combs weighed the absolute unreal weight. of 110 pounds in 3 days, not 4 days. It was only a 3-day event back then. Keith Combs had 30. If it had been a fourth one, Keith would have set records of all times, but it was a 3-day deal. Anyways, my point was there was a 30-day cutoff for that. And so Brent was down here pre-fishing, and Brent was struggling on fork, and he had somebody take him over to what's the lake? Quitman, just to catch some fish, to get some momentum. And long story short, he caught wind of shell beds on fork. He saw me at breakfast and went, oh my God, McFarland, you're guiding here. You got to help me with these shell beds. I said, call me tonight. So he called me that night. We had up till midnight giving him waypoints. At that time, I only had 10 of them. I was just learning here. Mark Peck, and like Billy said, all the guys were like, oh, there's only a few elite shell beds. You really quiet, don't share, nobody. Anyways, what I'm trying to tell you is that I gave him about all those 10 waypoints that I had. Well, he did not have time to practice on them because the cutoff was midnight. At 11:58, I remember him telling me, stop, no more waypoints, I'm out. He did not do very good in 2014, but he came back 2 years later in 2016 and won it. And he won it on one of those waypoints that I had told him was a deep water shell bed, and it was Heartbreak Ridge.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was a 10-pounder in the last 30 minutes, an hour.
Yep. And he had said, look, I got no choice. I need one big bite. I need to go to these shells, and I need to die on it. And that's where he went, to deep water shell, and he died on it. He caught a 10-pounder, and he won the tournament. I'm not taking any credit from it. I think it goes to show a lot of things. It shows the value of this app, that guys can use this kind of stuff to gather information. He got it from a guide, and 2 years later won a tournament from one little spot.
Hey, Mike, hold on. So what's funny about this is we're having this conversation, and because like I said, Bassmaster annoyed me with the way they use that term, and I was like, bro, there's not just oyster reefs all over Lake Fork. Like, that's not what's happening. That's not. And they were like, they were talking about shallow ones at that point, and it was irritating me. And so I kind of went anti the term shell bed for a few years. I was like, I'm not saying shell bed. It's a hard spot. That's all that matters, guys. Yeah. So that's kind of where I went with it.
Look, backing up what you said, when the water's down, I told everybody, now's your time to learn.
Yeah.
Now you can go out and see what's hard. I mean, that's what you were, I was saying, look, and you can define all the white clams, because they do use that too. Remember the white egrets? When the white egrets are on the banks, the shad are in, the shad are on this because they're piled up on plankton, where these guys just want plankton too. Everybody wants plankton.
Well, my point was, hold on. My point was, though, is that I've refrained from using the term shell bed for the last few years because of that. And today, when I was literally doing updates on the app and I put the shell beds that I use on there, I use the term shell bed just for you, buddy.
Hey, I backed off too, because of the point isn't the shell bed. I had a lot of people over the years that have called me and said, "Oh, do the bass eat the shells? How did they peck and break the shell?"
It's getting out of control, man.
It's the principle. So here's the greatest scenario I could give you to round it out. Those that are watching, if the shell got to move around too. If it's all about consistency. So if we had 5 days of north wind blow and it's consistent every single day, okay, and a new area happened to build.
While you're talking about this, address this comment while you're talking about this.
Where those shells just placed there? No, those shells moved there. So it's basically what Billy just said. You could have an area that builds up plankton. Nothing's there yet but the plankton for several days, and everything comes to it. It's a concentration. So you could actually find bass on plankton, concentration of plankton, and there is no shell there at that time. The shell narrows things down, and I do like what you said, Billy. Just start to use a hard bottom. Elaborate a little more and say hard bottom that has bait. As long as there's bait fish, you get a double echo.
Hard bottom areas that have, I think hard bottom areas that have the wind blowing on it is a great place to start. And then if you find those that have bait there, it's a great indicator that it's going off.
That's it. A double echo on your 2D sonar with bait fish.
Yeah.
And most likely, it's most likely a shell bed, but who cares? It's a double echo with bait fish, and you're going to catch fish.
Yeah.
Okay. I took pictures back when the lake was 7.5 foot low.
I'll step out just for 1 minute. Y'all keep going.
A bunch of bank lines that had the clams, and they were just white as could be. And the strange thing about it was that at the time, because now I understand a little more about the plankton and understand with the wind and the current. And these were northeast bank lines that were loaded with these things, which a south wind blowing in would be a place that the wind's going to be predominantly out of the south most of the time, and that's why those things were there. And so I still have those pictures in my phone of all those banks. You know,
man, those can load up with fish, like running little rattle traps through there when there's shad congregate. I mean, you could really catch a lot of fish in some of that stuff.
But for the people that are left in here, I mean, I think you two guys need to clarify and expand on when those beds become proficient.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the thing. When is it best to utilize them versus not? Is depth of water critical or not? And especially on the clam beds.
Yep.
Versus
the clams are much less. I don't think Billy needs to hear this. He knows, he understands now too. So I wouldn't save it for him. The clams are much less important to me. I very rarely, 1 out of 100 times, pursue the clam beds areas themselves as a target. Now there is a few target clam areas. One of them, I'll give you an idea. I believe they call it Two Cow Point, Two Cow Cove. Two Cow sticks out of there coming out of Oak Ridge. And that pocket, that island, Two Cow Island or whatever, that pocket right there is all white clams. And there are some times, even in late summer, that south wind was blowing in that pocket for several days. I just feel like, there's bait that I know there's food there. And so I'll utilize those. But generally, 99 out of 100 times when I fish, this guy is the confusing factor. This is not the shell bed that Mike McFarland means that the way that I fish. And that's what we got to teach and convey out there if I'm going to continue.
And so when are you going to fish that? All pre-spawn?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's generally all pre-spawn. The only time they pull on the mat.
I'm with you on that little shell, man. Like, there's so many people that see those blown up on the bank and they're like, "Oh, look, a shell bed." I'm like, "No,
it's not it.
Oh,
that ain't
it. That ain't what you.
It's not it. The best ones, like I said, the very, very best ones are running about 10 to 16 feet. Honestly, if the lake is full pool, stable, 10 to 16 foot, that 14-foot range, you can really find some congested areas. And when I say congested areas, I mean, if you've ever played basketball, you got 2 half courts. If you were to find a half a court area of those shells together, and they're not shell on shell on shell, but congested area, you found a mother lode.
Well,
that's a big spot.
And the question I have on that is that, okay, so you can't see those in that 9 to 16 foot of water unless one bites on the lure and you bring it in or it hooks it for some reason.
I'll give you an example. Your graph, though. Huh? You can pick it up. You can pick up the returns on your graph if you know what to look
with your sonar. So I'll tell you this: if you guys want to hear, this is the truth of how it came to me. Starting on the West Coast, we have what's called quagga mussels. On the East Coast, they have zebra. The zebra mussel is bigger than the quagga mussel. In the West Coast lakes, they're almost 99% of them are all rock, and I mean hard rock, where everything is hard bottom return. So you can't go out there and discover hard bottom return. It's all hard bottom return. Well, how would you find a shell bed then? Well, you take your sonar into an area, go into, say, a bend of the Colorado River, okay, Lake Powell, Lake Mead, whatever. You go into a bend where there's river current, there's river swings, and you look for triple echo on your sonar, which means now that not only is the rock sending back a fast signal, but it's covered in quagga mussels, which is echoing back super fast. So you have a triple echo on your 2D return. That's how we learn.
If anybody wants to know what a double and triple echo looks like, y'all need to search Mike McFarland's videos on his channel because he has great pictures and everything depicting all that.
And all of this came to me when I was 19. I went through the whole week class of Don Ivino, the legend Don Ivino, the one that invented sonaring and the doodling and just famous. But anyways, that's irrelevant. So this is my experience, and I got good at it on the West Coast, finding these currented, again, planktonic sourced areas, and I would catch find big schools of deep bass. So I come to Fork, and this is going to take a bit. I'm sorry, it's going to you want it, you want the goods. This is what happens. I come to Fork, and I hear from guys, handful of guys, Randy Oldfield, Mark Pax, shell beds a little bit. There's a few of them. They're not quagga mussels. They're not zebras. No one elaborated anything. No one said a lot about it. But I'm out working. I go to work in 2014. I have a 5-year-old girl who's on my boat. And I had no power poles at that time, so I'm doing my best to hold the boat in position, and they're catching fish, and I'm on Little Mustang Point, and I'm out in about 10 feet of water, throwing back to the trees. And the little girl says, "Fish with us." And I said, no, ma'am, I can't fish with you. And she said, why? I said, because I'm your guide and I don't fish. And she said, I want you to fish with me. The story I'm going to expedite here. Long story short, this little girl tells her dad to fish with, wants me to fish no matter what. And I don't want to throw with air catching fish. So I take my rod and I backhand it out to the deep water, which now puts it out off the point, 14 to 16 feet of water. I don't want to catch a fish. I'm watching my clients catch fish. The bait hits the bottom. You can't count to 10. Thunk, thunk, it gets bit, and I catch a 12-pounder. Well, when you're new to a lake or any good bass fisherman catches something, you want to know what's there. So when we go for lunch and I idle out off of that darn thing, I go start to see this. My sonars are still set Arizona style. And I go off and I see a triple echo. And I went, triple echo? What the hell? We don't got quagga mussels at Fork. I called up Pac-Man. I told him where I was. He said, yeah, that's a shell bed on Little Mustang Point. You drove right over it. Oh, okay. So the triple echo. And that's not the fin. It didn't absorb to me yet. Didn't hit me yet. But here's the deal. So 2 more years goes by. It's 2016. I get a call from guys that said they want to fish Fork. And they want to go tomorrow. And am I open? I said, yeah. Actually, they said, are you open tomorrow? They caught me. I said, yes, I'm open. They said, we want to do Fork. And I went, it's mega bass, bro. You don't want to fish Fork tomorrow. There's 900 boats. And he said, no, we're fishing Fork. We got a little bit of an argument. And I said, tell you what, if we come to one point on the day where I tell you, I told you so, I'm sorry. But you're going to push me this hard. I'll be happy to take you on Fork. I'll take your money, but I told you so. So we get out there. There's 900 boats. We're down south. We can't catch shit. Can't get in anywhere. Pardon my French. They at 9 o'clock say, we're sorry. I said, well, you're in it now. You're going to fish today with me. Make the best of it. So I said, you know what?
To speak freely here, Mike.
I said, let's run up. You know what? There's a spot up north. This is how I learned of Heartbreak. My favorite, one of the best shell bed areas in the whole lake because it gets so much wind and it's so big of a bar and it's so huge. So I said, I didn't even really call it Heartbreak at that time, but I said, there's a big ridge, a super structure way up the lake. Maybe we can get lucky and fit in there. So I run the whole 10 miles from down Little Caney. I get up to the area. I put the boat on the edge of the ridge in about 10 feet, and we're throwing on top. And there's 31 freaking boats all over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the guys are like, man, you're right. And so I said, you know what, man? One of you fuckers turn around and throw that sumbitch and jig out there in that deep water. Throw towards that damn buoy over there, will you? We ain't got nothing to lose, man. Oh, my God, if that wasn't one of the best first shell bed days I'd had going. We put a clinic on with all 31 boats. We caught 12 bass. They were all over 6 pounds, all the way up to 10 pounders. Didn't break the 10, but we smacked the crap out of them. So I turned the boat and I idle off, and what's there? I'll be god darn another double and triple solid echo. My brain's going, shell beds, but they don't have quagga mussels. They don't have zebra mussels. There's something to this, though. And I began to put my head.
Shells that we have, what are they?
It's a mussel. I forgot. I haven't talked about it in a while. I used to know the name. I wonder if I got notes. The next show, I'll give you much more information than what we have biology-wise. I'll do some more homework and I'll refresh what I know. But anyways, so now this second time I'm thinking, there's got to be more to this. I'm going to do homework. And now Michael McFarland, which is a guru sonar guy, I really am, man. I could find a Pepsi bottle on some of those lakes in the West Coast. You drown it, give me a 100-yard perimeter, I'll find it. But anyways, I decided I'm going to start on a shell bed quest, 2016. I began sonaring, looking for triple echoes. Double echo is hard bottom. Triple echo is one of 2 things only on Fork: concrete or some type of shell that reflects fast. So if your sonars are set right.
Underwater bridges give that triple echo?
Triple echo. They're so thick. The concrete's thick. And so if you're set right and getting triple echoes on Fork, it's probably shell.
What's that setup on your graph? Now, you're using Lowrance graphs, right?
I figured it out now on the hummingbirds. It's harder on the birds because the Lowrance, you can scroll up and down. If you have the Solix on the birds, it's real easy. If you have the hummingbird or the Helix, it's a little trickier. I'll show you in person. I'll show you in person how I am finally figured it out.
The bird 2D sonar is it's just not as good as the
Lowrance and the Garmin 2D are the best. The Garmin's really stepped it up a mile now. Really? I'm liking everything that they're doing. The mapping is incredible. The 2D is incredible, and they're really catching up on side scan, down scan. We know their live scope. But the whole principles at that time, now in 2016, was like, all right, there's more to this. So now I went to work like you do, David. I was hungry at that time. I was trying to build the business. I had nothing. I still wasn't even making it. 2 years in, I was trying to make a budget. And I went to work and I found, like Billy said, hundreds of those deep shell beds. I found them one day in 53 feet of water. Very small pad. I mean, just the smallest little pad of them, not much on it. I did drop some fish in 52 feet of water, but there's a game there to it. It's all about currents and winds, and it's unique. It's not all there is to fork. The last 2 years, they have not been on the shell enough. I have not had much reports of it, and it's forced me to go shallow. Last year, if you left the shallow water, you screwed yourself.
Yeah.
You might have caught some offshore fish. You might have caught some, but
yeah.
Yep.
It goes in phases. So, the lake fills back up, and then when the lake. So you have when the lake's low, you have all the fish out there on that stuff, and then it fills back up. Well, not only does it fill back up, but it's low for a prolonged period of time. You grow all that growth up shallow, like in the dry bed. You flood that. Well, dude, they're staying scattered that whole year. They're staying scattered
the whole year.
Stuff that whole year, and then
I think they stayed for 2.
The next year you got the remnants of that stuff, plus now you got like hydrilla coontail growing, and you got hyacinth going crazy where they can hang out and they can live under hyacinth mat year round. I mean, that works too. So a lot of reasons for them to stay shallow the last couple of years. So, man, Mike, I tell you what, here's the deal, dude. And I want to say this before we move on. We do got a couple questions we need to address over here about just current fishing stuff. But I want to say this, and David, this goes double for you too, man. We all know how easy it is to get sideways in this business with people. And Mike, me and you have been on the same side and opposing sides, and I've been friends with this guy when he didn't like you, and you've been friends with that guy when he didn't like me. And it's just the dynamics, all that drama stuff. It's all nonsense. But here's what I love. There's always been respect. There's always been acknowledgement and respect between me and you. And I love the fact that we can have a conversation where it could have been a disagreement, but it's really not. Like at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the fishing results are the same, and we're just trying to figure out how to catch them. And I see it differently than you, but that's no big deal. And I can't appreciate and thank you enough for that, brother. So that was a good conversation. I'm glad we got to have it.
The same, man. And I think men are men and women are women or whatever, but people in general, if they can't learn to put water under the bridge sometimes, then no point in building. You know, I mean, you take a look at even like, I'll make a funny here and just close it out and get to these messages. But think about, you realize that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they were not buddies.
That's right.
They were not buddies. Elon Musk was a Democrat. They loved him a few years ago. Now they hate him. And so people change, things change. But just be a man, be respectful, and just the fact that you could say that, thank you, back at you, man. I've always respected you, David. I've never had anything to ever have a problem with you with. I just don't. David's a pretty respectful, straight up guy. So thank you guys for being a part of it. I'm looking forward to backing each other up this year. Yeah, how bad is the cold? How bad is the cold going to mess him up for the next couple of days heading down tomorrow from Arkansas?
How bad is the cold going to be? It's going to be tough, dude. Like,
go to Lake Welch. Go to Lake Welch. Go to Lake Welch.
Look, you're going to have
it'll affect them there too, right, David?
Yes, absolutely. And it depends on, especially up north. I mean, if the discharge over at Welch is still pumping out 68 degrees, which they were when I was there the last time, those areas within a half a mile there are going to be warm. And that's where I saw all the bedfish. There was plenty of bedfish, and there was plenty of fry. So, I mean, there's still going to be fish on beds there right now.
Yeah. So my answer, not to cut Billy off, my answer to your question on that is, if Billy mentioned earlier, if you were watching, that if you already knew where fish had moved in the last warm trend, then all you're going to do is back up a little. You're going to pull out just to the first little, and man, if they were in 2 feet, they might be in 4 feet. Just back up just the smallest little bit to ditch the drain the nearest way. And sometimes some of these really big fish will still stay in. So if you're here, you're stuck. It sounds like you're here, tomorrow, no matter what, through the weekend. Man, do the best you can, but be careful in the cold.
I would do what Cody did. Cody, this last big, when this cold snap rolled in, Cody, right after that warm trend and then those cold days got in, I mean, he was just targeting ditches where those fish had pulled into, and with the days getting longer, he was pretty much camped on those ditches that are, in some of these pockets that actually have a good ditch. And he backed off and started throwing a drop shot with a tomato worm on it. And he caught some quality. He caught some 6-pounders. Yeah. He had a 7-pounder and an 8-pounder.
No, he did good. He did good. And so that's the deal, man. Like these guys said, dude, the fish are spawning on Welch. So, if you just want to catch some fish, go to Welch. Well, look, man, you're coming to Fork to fish Fork, and I know some people are like that, and I get it. You're coming to Fork to fish Fork. You want a chance at a 10-pounder, don't go to Welch, because Welch doesn't – an 8-pounder is a unicorn at Welch, right? We all know that. So, if you're just down to fish Fork and that's what you want to do, you want to try to catch big fish, Fork's your place. So, the deal is you do need to have some clue of where they moved into. If you're trying to figure that out on your own, the way to do that, the only shortcut I can tell you to that is look for the expansive areas of shallow water that are in the north to northwest corners. So a pocket that runs to the northwest and it's really shallow and flat, go to that area, find a drain or a ditch that, like they're just talking about, that goes in there, or find some timber out in front of it, and you can go fish really, really slow in front of those areas that warmed up 10 days ago. Fish really slow with a drop shot and a jerk bait in those areas. That's your best bet. Now, if you want the cheat code to do that, I just created it today specifically on the YLFG Pro Tips package on Fish Life app. So Fish Life app, LYFE. I know we've talked about it a lot tonight. It's linked in the description. But on my package, the Your Lake Fork Guy Pro Tips package, I just put, I think it's 8 or 10 different pockets on there where fish moved in on the warming trend. And it explains it on there to you. On warming trends, go shallow, fish a chatterbait, a swim bait, and a weightless plastic. On cold trends, pull out to the deeper areas in the timber in the middle or out in front of it and fish a drop shot and a jerk bait. And that's the way to do it. I mean, if you want to subscribe to the Your Lake Fork Guy Pro Tips package, you'll have at least 8 or 10 pockets that you can go to with confidence. There's fish in there, and those fish are going to be hunkered down in that timber in the middle and in front of those areas, and they're not leaving because they're waiting on the next warm trend and moon cycle to go get on the bank and do their thing. So they're not going anywhere. So they're hard to catch in there now. And if you got live scope, it'll make your life easier because you can get right on them and target them. But even without live scope, you can do it. And there you go. Drop shot and a jerk bait, baby.
Yeah, if y'all want to go to Welch later this week.
Talk to us about Welch, David. I know you've been there a lot.
I'm available. I mean, okay. I got nothing going on this week. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I'd be glad to take you. Hey, listen, there's no such thing as too cold. I fished tournaments before where I had a heater on the front of the boat.
That's right.
And I'm talking.
Look at this.
17 degrees all day.
It's running right now, Jack.
The cold's not bad. I got a snowsuit that's bad to the bone. So.
Yeah. All right, I'm sitting in my garage. Look, the hood went up a little while ago. It's getting cold in here, so the hood went up. Mike, talk to us. What you got there?
If this right here is amazing to me, because I talk about Mark Pack a lot. I was one of my probably most idolized fishermen that I had ever met in my lifetime, just for the uniqueness of how much he understood fish. And if you'll stay with me here, I'm going to add to the guy coming down there from Arkansas. Billy just gave you spot on. Go follow Billy, and you're going to have those backwater spots. You'll be able to dial in fish real quick. Go follow me, and I've got some of these live scoping areas where, some offshore stuff that's really cool. And back to the Mark Peck thing, everybody's trending to this minnow. Well, Mark Peck invented this bait in 2020. 2001, over 23 years ago. And it was almost like he already knew where these fish were. He did. He knew where they were without the live scope. And he went out in his way. But he invented, here is this huge, massive trend in the minnow. And look, I want to show you something. This is Lake Fork Lures. I cannot hold this thing stable without that tail moving. And so.
Now, which one?
Hey, I got to throw something in there. You talk about Mark Pack and how far ahead of the curve he was. Everybody's talking about pinging a minnow now. Brother, Mark Pack was pinging a minnow without anything to ping it with 20 years ago.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He was chasing
suspended fish with a damn fluke when the wind's blowing and nobody else could get it to him. Mark knew how to catch them.
How did he know they were there? 2D sonar. I can't remember. This is basically the Lake Fork, the old trophy lures, which is no longer trophy lures anymore. It's called Lake Fork Lures now. It's a new brand and everything, but this is just basically that Live Magic shad, but with no tail. It's the pin tail. I'll dig it back up and find out the name, what they call it today, because they've changed the name just a little.
Well, they should call.
Yeah, it's
if
the
they don't
minnow.
call that Live Magic minnow, they're wrong.
They've changed some of the names just a little, so I don't want to be completely wrong. I'll get it for your next show, but I want to, number one, I'm using it. And I said that the uniqueness of me, every time I just chuckle, I'm like, yeah, old Pac-Man knew about, you guys are all crazy. Got all these companies with all these new baits. And, here Pac-Man's like, what about my bait I made 23 years ago,
For the most
and I can hear him chuckling. Hey, you need my minnow.
For the most part, all these minnows are the same. And to me, that one's better because of the swim slots. And it was
and it's a patented deal. I mean, like I said, I can't keep it from moving. It's a perfect combination. So that's what I've got a lot right now. This next week when we warm train, I will be back, and I plan on putting a lot more stuff. There won't be other lakes on my app part, but I'll definitely liven you up on shell bed stuff on Fork. We'll probably, it depends. Billy said he's calling them shell beds, so I'll probably continue calling mine shell beds. Hard bottom shell bed.
Hard spot shell beds. It's all good.
We'll just change it to muscle bed.
We're going to call them, we can call them bait beds, whatever. I mean, shed plankton beds. I don't care, but you're going to catch fish on them. That's the point of it.
Here's what I know. Subscribe to the Fish Life app packages and go fish them and catch them up. And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
It's interesting,
right.
too. I mean, over there at that ridge over there you're talking about going towards 2946.
Yeah, Heartbreak Ridge.
Heartbreak, yeah. I was idling around there one day and I noticed something and I thought, wonder what that is. So I dropped a point on it and it was like in 9-10 foot, and I circle the boat back and spot locked and I throw up there and start working a drop shot on it. And I mean, I said, could this be rocks? Because I mean, it was just hanging up on it coming through there. I said, surely that can't be shell that far out.
There's probably some exposed rock too, but there's definitely
some root. There's some root in there too, some weird rooted stuff that will feel funky with that. But the key for me, like the main thing that I get confidence in when I want to ask is all right, I found the hard spot. It looks right. And again, who cares if there's shell there or not? But in the past, I've been like, okay, is it a shell bed? I really want to know it's a shell bed. I put it like a 1 ounce weight. And if it feels river rockish, which if you haven't ever fished river rock, you won't know that feel. It's not the rubbly, years ago, I remember studying. Yeah. Grass has a certain scratch on your line, and rubble rock and sand and mud, they all have a different feel. And so river rock has this, climbing clunk. And I've learned now that fishing enough shell beds, I can really tell when we're in shell or not. If it's just hard bottom,
you don't get as much of the real sharp hangups like where
when
you fish a root system with a jig and it snags and pops. You don't get as much of that with that river rock. It just rolls a little bit.
It rolls, and you don't get hung up in shell beds. You just won't get. Generally, you won't. It's just a really weird kind of a sluggety clunk. You can tell, man, it like came up over something, but it does it over and over again. And again, it's, and I like the approach today. The shell part can confuse people. Who cares if the shells are there or not? They do happen to be a part of the equation, but it's my phone's about to die. I got 5%, guys. So any other questions we can answer? The 25th and 26th of this month.
I got the weather pulled up. So the last day of the cold trend is kind of Sunday, and then Monday it warms back up. It's not really a true warm trend because the overnights are still kind of around that water temp,
It's going to be Wednesday.
That's Tuesday and Wednesday. Like, it's going to be okay. It's going to level out some. It'll get a little better. It's not going to be like a real warm trend lights out deal, but it should be pretty decent. Like, you should be able to catch some fish.
Yep. So, hey, man, before my phone dies, I do want to say thank you, David. Thank you for your time and all your support and everything and what you do. Billy, the same. Glad to be a part of this. You guys all have a good night. If you're fishing, stay warm and safe. Tell somebody where you're going so, we know, God forbid, something fall in the water, freeze your ass off.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you know where I am. I'm like, for 2 more days, for 48 hours, I'm like a bear. I'm just hibernating.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, brother. I'm not going back out till Monday at this point.
Yeah, I'm going out this weekend. I'll be
That's hard for me. Like, I'll get out there. Like, I'll get in the cold, but not this week.
Yeah. But that's why I say I'm going to go and dig in. I probably won't get on the water till 10 o'clock on Saturday. Fish till dark, but it'll be cold. But there's some of those areas I want to go look at and work with that drop shot in those ditches and just see if I can drag up some bigger ones that I know that are still there.
Be good,
Mike,
guys.
Man, I know you got to go, dude. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll too, Billy.
Yes, sir.
All right.
2%. Take care, man. Thank you so much, everybody.
2%.
My phone is 2%.
I'll be done.
I just kicked him out.
I'm on my laptop.
David, you going too?
Yeah, I want to go. So it was good. Great information tonight. How many people did you have in here?
It hovers around 100. Sometimes it's a little over. Right now we're at 98.
They had to snag some awesome information.
You know what's cool is we hold that around 100 audience for 2 hours. That's exactly. Really cool. Well, at least an hour and a half, hour 45 of it, we've been hovering around that mark. So,
especially if they're coming to Fork, and that's why I wanted to stress the fact that if any of these guys, are tournament fishermen that are fishing for these unders, I'm going to focus whenever I put it in there. I'm going to definitely, put it in there, Fork, and then targeting unders, and then label where this was, what it was, and what we were using to catch them and whatnot. As far as keeping them updated on what these things are doing. Are they then when they're on beds or when those unders are on beds, and just let them follow it that way, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. No, that'll be good, man. No, the Fish Life app, I'm so excited to have more. I've always been the only guy doing a Lake Fork deal, and I think I like it better this way, where we have, instead of a lake package, we have a guides package. Like it's the David Ozio package, or my package, or Cody's, or Mike's, or whoever. And we'll probably add some more guys as we go on throughout the year. I think that's cooler, man. It gives more information. Gives more information for Lake Fork, of course, but it gives more information in general. It's just a better educational tool, I think, that way. So yeah. Well, I'm excited about seeing where that goes, and I'm excited about seeing the results, because lo and behold, we'll always get some pictures from people catching fish using the app, and that's always happened in the past. So I'm excited to see that going forward too.
Yeah. Well, if any of your people, if they want to get a hold of me, to go 409-782-4269. You can either call me or text me. As far as that goes, if you want to, expand on this education process, which Billy and I and Mike and Cody all try to bring to you guys, put it in a steadfast and be able to see it in action. We can do that too. So I've got days open. I've got some days open and still open in March, and got some days open in April still also. So if you're looking to get on the water, feel free to give me a call, 409-782-4269.
That's it. Call David. Hey, and if for whatever reason you can't find David's number, just hit us up at yourlakeforkguy.com. And if you ask for David, we'll sure get you to him for sure. So,
all right, brother. Well, I greatly appreciate the opportunity, man, and appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, brother. We'll see you next time.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye.
All right, later, Dave. All right, I'm going to answer some more questions. Don't leave. I see about 4 or 5 of y'all bailed on us. Hey, don't leave yet. We'll answer some of these questions we've had and comments that we've had. I'll take over solo for a little while longer. I don't know. Who knows? Look, boys, I'm not fishing the rest of the week. I don't know where this will go, or where it'll end, or when it'll stop. We don't know. Cheers. Hold them up. Drink them down. All right. We got a gator question up in here. Well, right now, you don't have to worry about gators. I can assure you, them gators ain't doing you no harm. If you see a gator on the bank, walk up, slap him on the tail, because it's the time of year where you can do it and get away with it. Like, them gators ain't moving about nothing right now. Like, they don't want no part of this cold. So you're good on gators right now. But what do you think about gators? They never bugged me in a yak outside of coming up on a fish next to me. Just seems every year they get a little thicker and candy. Yeah, we're getting more and more gators yearly. And I'm going to tell you, they're eating a lot of deer. Like, the reason they're in Little Caney, that's where all the deer are. And they're eating a lot of deer. I've seen deer carcasses up and down Little Caney the last few years. Like, they're eating deer big time, because those deer that live up down Little Caney, they live in neighborhoods. Real tame deer, real easy targets for a gator. So yeah, if I was in a kayak, there's gators big enough to make you nervous in Little Caney for sure. Like, I maybe would just not fish in Little Caney. Like, go to Long Branch, go to Glade, go to Birch. A lot of places to fish in a kayak that are good places where you don't have to deal with the gators. But I've never had it. I've had one instance where a gator was acting really aggressive towards me, and that was at a certain time of year when they're known to be that way. And I think they're mating or whatever they're doing then. But that was like at the end of summer, early fall, when I had a gator, like a pretty big male gator, act pretty aggressive towards my boat. And we just kind of left that area and left him alone. We just moved on, and he let us go. When I say act aggressively, like, he was on the other side, and started easing towards us. And the closer he got, the faster he was moving. So before he got too close, we just moved out of that area. Because I had a woman and 2 guys in my boat. Like, I didn't want to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, I would probably fend the gator off with a net or something, but like, I don't want to have to, especially not with a woman in the boat. You know how that is. So, yeah, I mean, gators aren't really, I've never had any issues with gators. And I've been around them growing up in Southeast Texas, and then used to live, when I was in the Marine Corps, I lived in South Carolina, in coastal South Carolina. We had them just all over the place all the time. And I've never had any real issues with gators. So they're pretty docile for them. I mean, think about this. People swim in Louisiana every day of the summer, and they're everywhere in Louisiana. So. All right, let's see. Well, I scrolled past a lot. Wow, holy cow. Scrolled past a lot of comments because I went down to the bottom. That's my bad. All right, here we go. Let's take that one off. Going to Fayette on Sunday. Do you think it's worth it in this weather? If they're generating, do they still generate in Fayette? Listen, on these hot water lakes, if they're generating, yes, those fish are spawning. It's go time, dude. Like, if they're generating on Fayette, it's absolutely go time, which I think they are on Fayette, but I don't know that for sure. Fayette's fantastic. Fantastic lake down there in lower southern central Texas, Brenham area, down there south of Brenham. Great, great, great lake. Here's a good question. If you were to choose the full moon in March or April, which would be the best bet this season? Yeah, I mean, either one's going to be good. I mean, as long as we get a little bit of warm weather, probably the full moon in March, just because it'll be the initial wave and not everybody will be. Here's the deal. If you come in April on the full moon, like 9 out of 10 boats are going to be bed fishing. If that's what you're wanting to do, if you're trying to come on a full moon, you're trying to bed fish, 9 out of 10 boats are going to be bed fishing in April. If you come on the March full moon, there'll be some guys bed fishing. There won't be as many. So, and they'll be a little fresher, a little easier to catch maybe. If you're looking specifically for bed fishing. Now, if you're just trying to go all around fishing and catch them however you can, then April might be better because it's going to be like you'll have pre, post, and spawning fish all at the same time on that full moon in April. So you can catch them out there on the outside on the shell bed points that we've been talking about, or you can catch them back there on top waters that are post-spawn fry garters, or you can catch them bed fishing, and you can kind of do just a little bit of everything on that full moon in April. The full moon in March is going to be pretty much your sight fishing, or if you're on the 7-day window after the full moon, you're sight fishing or you're sucking. Basically, is what's going to be happening in March. Let's see. Lake Fork pre-spawn setting to be crazy with these weather swings. Just broke down how this week's patterns are affecting pre-spawn across the country over on Bass Prediction Center. Marsh fishing? Hey, there you go. Another source of information for bass fishing. I need to check that out myself. Lake Fork pre-spawn is setting up to be crazy with the weather swings. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's stacking them in groups for sure. It's definitely going to group them up the way this is setting up. Just broke down how the patterns are affecting pre-spawn across the country. Cool. That's on Bass Prediction Center. We need to all go check that out. That seems interesting. I don't know what Bass Prediction Center is, but I'm going to find out. What's your go-to jerkbait? Good question here. Go-to jerkbait that dives 3 to 5 feet or best jerkbait period? Should we believe the Megabass hype? I've been catching them lately, but not sure if it's the jerkbait or brand. Yeah, no, Megabass. To me, Megabass is the best overall jerkbait. That Megabass Vision is the best jerkbait. Now, in the 3 to 5 foot category, there's a lot that'll get it done. An old suspending rogue will do the job. For sure. It will. The Strike King KVD will do the job. The 6 Cents Provoke 106X will do the job in that 3 to 5 foot range. A lot of jerkbaits that'll work. The deeper jerkbaits seem to get a little more tricky on which ones they'll bite better and won't. Some of the deeper jerkbaits don't really go as deep as they're supposed to, unless you use like really light line, which I don't like to do around here. So Megabass, though, I mean, yeah, it's $25, but look, here's the deal. When you got Elite Series and MLF type dudes and they're throwing a jerkbait, no matter who they're sponsored by, they're trying to hide the fact that they're throwing a Megabass jerkbait. That's the reality. Someone needs to start selling phone chargers in Texas. I was thinking that, bro. When Mike said I'm on 2%, I'm like, dog, you ain't got an outlet? Like, you ain't got no plugs in that big fancy garage? Like, Mike's got one of the nicest tackle shop, boat shop garages, and he added on to it, built onto an area, built it specifically for filming his shows in there. And if you haven't, go check out Mike's channel, McFarland Fishing. But, dude, like, I know he's got some outlets that, like, we can't get a brick and a cord in there, dog. Like, what are you talking about? Your phone's out of battery. Come on, man. Come on. Oh, I didn't make them do the dance. That's my fault. I didn't make them do the Trump dance. Look, I'll give you a Trump dance right here. Here we go. Trump dance time. There you go. There's a Trump dance for everybody. I'm sorry I didn't make Mike and David do it. Hey, y'all like my PJ pants? Look, I got PJ pants, and I got track pants, and I got shorts all on. I'm layered up in the garage tonight, boys. You can't ever say I don't care about you because I'm out here wearing 3 layers of pants and 4 layers of shirts and a space heater just to talk to y'all on this freezing cold night. All right, we answered that question. Which one's going to be better for spawn? I mean, well, so we kind of answered that after the full moon. We talked about that at length earlier. Before or after the full moon, so it's the 7-day period after that's the best spawning. Like from the full moon to 7 days after is the best window for the spawning activity as far as catching them on beds. What is the water temperature on Fork? Well, it's changing fast right now. It'll be in the 40s. It'll be in the 40s by this weekend, I would think. Do guides still night fish in the wintertime? Whit Smith. So Whit Smith is the king of the dock. Whit Smith is like the dude for night fishing now. And I have seen a couple pictures here lately of him in the dark catching some big ones. I believe that's, I think that was here. Whit Smith, like this week, I saw some nighttime pictures of him. Yeah. There's definitely a couple, and Whit is my recommendation. Whit is a fantastic human being and a fantastic guide, and he is like the king of the dark, man. The Prince of Darkness is Whit Smith on Lake Fork these days, for sure. And I caught up the questions. Some of y'all keep asking me before after full moon. We answered that. The March and April deal seems to be a pretty popular question, but we answered that. So we caught all the questions up. See, so somebody said Whit or oilfield, but dude, I don't see like the Randy, like the winter and springtime. I don't see his nighttime pictures. I know Randy Oilfield used to do the nighttime stuff, but I just don't see his nighttime pictures until normal nighttime fishing, which is summer. And that's the deal. It's kind of the fishing in the winter and spring at night is kind of the against the grain thing or the oddball thing. And I know Whit does that a lot, but most of Randy's pictures that I see in the cold time of year or springtime is during the day. And not on Lake Fork, to be honest with you. Like, hey, no disrespect to Randy in any way whatsoever, but he's got him another little honey hole. It's actually really close to my house. That's where most of his pictures come from. Jason Ward says, great stuff, and thanks for putting this together. Hey, man, don't thank me. Thank all the guys that jump on here because it's nothing for me. Like, it's no work for me to do this. It's easy for me to run a live stream, and I just text those guys, and it's on them, dude. Like, they're the ones taking time. I'm going to be doing this either way for my stuff, but they're the guys, Cody, Dave, and Mike are the ones taking time out of their lives and families. And, we all have family. Mike's got his son living there with him or close to him, right around the corner. And y'all saw Cody's kids tonight on the live stream. David jumped on here right after doing some stuff with his grandkids and his daughter. So these guys are the ones taking the time out of their schedule and their family life to come on here and try to help people catch fish, man. I mean, that's what we're doing. We all love this game. We love catching fish. We love what we do. And so it's all kudos to those guys. They're the ones making it happen and putting it together. I'm here in my garage, easy peasy, and they're making it happen. So I appreciate them. Hex is a night fisherman. Fishes all night. I like it. Boiled baits to get the salt out and soften them up. Okay, hold on, wait a minute. So this is something I don't know about. So I remember back in the day when your swim baits, when the tails would get kind of cockeyed and deformed on you, if you boiled them, it would allow you, and then laid them out straight, it would straighten the tails back up on your swim baits. We've done some of that. But I did not know that boiling baits got the salt out of them. Is that a real thing? If so, maybe fixing to piss off Miss Laney in there. I don't know, man. We may be fixing to make the Princess Laney mad in there. We're going to be using up all the boiling stuff. Because I got a lot of baits that need to be boiled if that's the case. A lot. That's pretty cool. All right. Did y'all like the song we started with, 2.5 hours ago? You remember that song? I love that song. You going fishing? Jason Allen. Question. Why don't you guys like the salt? I've had good luck with the salty plastics. Well, here's the deal. Salt, you may have had good luck with salty plastics. There's some really great baits that are designed with a lot of salt in them. But the only thing salt actually does to a bait is make it tear up faster. It does not make the fish bite it better. It makes the action actually a little bit better. It doesn't make them hold on any better, contrary to popular belief. So if you took the bait that you're catching them on with salt in it, took salt out, you catch them better. Every time. When you remove salt from a soft plastic, it adds buoyancy, which adds action, and it adds a lot of durability, so it makes the bait hold up better. Companies put salt into baits to make them tear up faster. The more salt you put in it, faster bait tears up. And they sell more. That's it. They just want to sell more baits. Hey, how cold is it out here that, my computer's lagging a little bit when I shake my head? It's cold. I noticed that on my phone screen. I was looking at the weather, and I scrolled over to the days that guy was asking about. My phone screen was lagging because how cold it was, because I'd had it sit down over here in the cold. That's pretty crazy. It stinks you're cold. All right, boys, we might not make 3 hours tonight. We might need to go ahead and wrap this up, man. I don't know. Y'all asked me a couple more questions. We'll try to answer them, but we're getting close to the end here. We've been in about 2.5 hours now. Good live stream tonight. Great topics. Good time. It's Wednesday, so it's Guides Night. I love it. Do the 6, 7, and even 8-inch jig head minnow baits really show out? Well, that is not something I can attest to one way or the other, because I have not thrown those. Now, what I can tell you is the bigger flukes work to get bigger bites on the fluke, but I have not used the big minnow baits. When I'm pinging, listen, if I'm going to throw a big bait at a fish on live scope, I got a lot of crap I'd rather throw than a damn minnow. I don't want to do the minnow's like my last resort. It's like throwing a drop shot. You can win a tournament pinging a minnow, and you can win a tournament using a drop shot. You're still gay when you get done, when you win. You're still gay. So I don't like it. But I don't know. The 6, 7, 8-inch jig head minnows, maybe. But if you're going to do that, why not just throw a damn line through at them, or an Alabama rig, or a glide bait, or a million other things, right? That's what my head is on that, and I could be wrong. Yeah, and if you get done fishing for the day and you leave one of them salt filled baits on your hook, it will rust your hook. That's true. And like you guys that fish on the weekends, you leave a salty plastic on and you leave it in your garage or your closet or whatever all week, and you take it back next weekend, your hook's run. Yeah, stroker crawl is a good bait. Stroker crawl, 6 cents makes that stroker crawl. It's a good bait. Really good bait. Really good jig trailer. Really good standalone bait. Good bed fishing bait. It's a good bait for sure. Which is better, before or after the full moon during spawn? I feel like we went over this pretty in depth with Mike earlier, but I mean, it depends on what you want to do. Like if you're wanting to bed fish, then after the 7-day period after, from the full moon till 7 days after, is definitely the peak of the bed fishing activity, especially like from 3 days after the full moon to 7 days after the full moon. That is the peak of the sight fishing, bed fishing activity. Now, if you're wanting to just get active fish and catch them, then before the full moon, they actually feed more. So it depends on how you want to catch them. What's your go-to Senko? I feel like I'm answering questions as fast as I can. So what's your go-to Senko? So Yamamoto has been a great Senko for a lot of years. Obviously, it's great, but it tears up so fast. It's a pain in the butt, pain to deal with. If you're fishing it wacky style, I like to use Yamamoto. But now Crossbaits has got – I'm on the Crossbait deal, dude. Like V&M Chopstick is a good one for sure, wacky, but I still think Yamamoto's a little better. Crossbaits has the same wiggle Yamamoto does, and it doesn't tear up as bad. So I'm a huge Crossbaits fan. Like I'm a big fan of Crossbaits now. Their Senko's really good. Local guy in Texas, again, like we said earlier. So that's where I'm at on the Senko. Now, I'll be honest with you. If you're either weightless Texas rigging or even with a weight Texas rigging, then it doesn't matter. Buy the cheap one that lasts, which is like, you know, the tough cheap ones, like Yum Dingers and Big Bite Baits, whatever theirs is called, like stuff like that. Serious question. Cody May said he had a serious question, then he asked this. Is an 18-wheeler hauling helium gas a heavy load, or is it a lighter load? Don't know why I would care, but I will say that oftentimes after dinner, I'm hauling a lot of gas. It's a heavy load, brother. Like at my age, it's a heavy load. You know what I'm saying? Better out than in, as Shrek said. I think that's a good note to end it on. Cheers, y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us as always. And we will see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.